Keep spawning culture. And I'm not even on the stage. Hey, y'all, it's Adrie with Monster Creek Mushrooms. Hope you guys are having a great day. Oh, shoot. We're starting with an audience. You guys must be excited about having Ed Grand on. Bam. Woo. Let's see. Justin Norris. Good evening, Adrian Samantha. What? She'll be here momentarily. She's grabbing me a coffee. She's running a little late. I think they got a long line. Good morning to you, Ed. I'm excited. Oh, yeah, I guess it is morning for Ed, isn't it? I'm excited for this episode. Two of my favorite channels all in one night. All in one for a night of fungalcation. There we go. I was mixing the wrong words. So, Frondosa Grandiosa. I always love your name. It reminds me of, a scientific name, but also a magic spell. It's like you turned someone into like a Griffola Frondosa, but what's up, Alder Creek? Falcor. We have the eternal dragon dog with us. What's up, Martha? Ogres Fuzzlebutts. That's a good name, too. You guys go. Some of the most interesting names. Hello from KCMO, Kansas City, Missouri. I was about to ask what that was, but Eddie. Rothar says Eddie. What's up, Myco Monkeys? Oh, gosh, I guess we are. We're Myco Sapiens, aren't we? What's poppin', homies? What's up, Jenna? Welcome, everybody. Just for everyone who is joining us on Instagram, please know that, in fact, Matthew Eucariota on Instagram, I'm checking it right now. Instagram does not cleanly mesh with my program. YouTube and X both do. So if you go to YouTube or X and watch our live stream there, I'll actually see your comments, hopefully while you're still here. So just so you guys know, if you can come and join us, I basically use Instagram as just a funnel to get you guys over to YouTube and X, mainly because I can actually speak to you then. I'll miss a lot of stuff when it's on Instagram because it does not notify me, but it notifies me when I get stuff from YouTube and whatnot. So Samantha will be joining us soon. We have... of course, Dr. Ed Grand on today. I am not the best at giving introductions, so I'll let him give an introduction. But you guys, I'm sure many of you are already here for him. So that said, he's a mushroom breeding expert. He obviously is educated on it. He was actually educated in part from University of Tennessee, which is like 30 minutes from me. So pretty interesting that he and I actually have some, we've crossed space, but not time. So, which is always fun. Myco Ogre, I'm excited about this. Ed and Andrew are the two Myco peeps I've learned the most from in my journey into mycology. Excellent. You know, I always call myself an ogre. I always tell Samantha that, like, that I'm an ogre. I'm either a dwarf or an ogre if I'm going into the fantasy stuff. But hello, everyone from Southern Arizona. What's up, Trevor? Mossy Creek and Ed Grand, a mashup I definitely need in my life. Thank you so much. Absolutely back to sport. Glad to hear it. I knew people would be excited about Ed. Excited Ed in the house. Well, I accidentally logged into my old account with Fuzzlebutts. Gotcha. That's all right. I could dig that. The Fuzzlebutts was hilarious. Myco Ogre is also a good one. nothing to be sorry for. Though I guess the Myco one is brand consistent. So, let's see. Also, Matthew Eukaryota, if you're still with me on Instagram, and everyone else, like I said, join us on YouTube and X if you want your comments to be seen. Otherwise, Instagram's a great platform to watch from. But we do a show every Thursday. It's usually Samantha and I, and we try to have a guest and or a farm review where people send in videos of their farms, and we like a tour of their farms, and we go through and we kind of critique it a little bit, like a free consult. We also do other farm segments. We're going to do some bioprospecting segments, especially through the summertime. Obviously, the mushroom season's kind of down right now. We will also have a discount code. It's a 20% discount code. And real quick, 50% off mentorships until Friday. The mentorships are our week-long course. I'll do them online with you where we get on and we basically spend a lot of time. We usually stretch those out a little bit more than a week, but I'll get on with you and we'll cover everything you want to cover over, usually our Discord. But right now, people are emailing us and calling us, and we're doing our mentorships at 50% off, which takes $1,000 off your mentorship price. So it's a pretty good deal. And let me mute my phone because I'm getting alerts and I don't want to be bothered. Bothering you guys. So, but anyways, guys, yeah, 50% off mentorships. Please just comment. Not comment. Email us, call us, let us know if we can get you set up. Right now, I think I got all of February filled up. And then we have the summer usually fills up really close to the let out of school. Fall fills up faster than anything. So if you're wanting to reserve some time for like fall break or something, please get with us quick. We'll make sure to get you a PayPal invoice sent out with the 50% discount. Is it just Discord or we can? No, you come to the farm for sure. So I was just saying that we can do it online for people who were asking last week. But we also absolutely, the week is spent with us usually. Most people do the week-long mentorship here at the farm, and that ends up being probably the best way because you get a lot of hands-on stuff. Otherwise, when you do it online, I have to send you a list of materials you're going to need, and then we're going to go through a bunch of stuff, and it's kind of a bigger ordeal. But the mentorship where you come in, there's some great stuff. We end early enough that most people are able to go to like Gatlinburg and hang out, go to the aquarium, the mountains. People do camping through the good, nice seasons. We've got a lot of lakes and rivers and things like that. So if you're kind of like an outdoorsy person, a lot of people come hang out with us during that time. So they'll come and like camp somewhere like Panther Creek State Park. We've got some inroads with some of the nice Airbnbs around here. Last person that did our mentorship stayed literally right down the road. Like they were a walking distance. So you can see our shop from where they were staying, that kind of thing. So I'm not a bot. I love Myco Community. But yeah, absolutely. We do the week-long hands-on with people, and we'll tailor it for however you want. So just know that. We will tailor it if you want to do lab work. If you want to focus all week on liquid culture, I will show you as much as I can. Or mushroom breeding, I'll show you all the different ways I breed stuff. Speaking of, we're going to have Dr. Ed on, Dr. Ed Grand, here in just a little bit. And I cannot wait to dig in about some monokaryotes for sure, but as well as a bunch of other stuff. This guy's been probably doing this longer than I've been in mushrooms. So, like in general. Massmofo, water heater died and I have 20 jars in the sink, boiling water to wash them with. Yeah, that really sucks. The kettle, we use our hot water kettle here like crazy every day, whether it's for washing stuff or dissolving agar or 100 other things. So, hey, there she is. You're fine. You can go ahead and grab your computer. We've got it down.
That is hot as heck. So
oh my goodness, they didn't do child's temp this time for me?
No.
I'm kind of a sissy when it comes to hot water, guys. Frozen pipes for the past week has been really messing with me. Yeah, no kidding. I don't know if you guys can see it. Well, you can now. I'm wearing a t-shirt. Hallelujah. Like it is finally like 50 degrees here again. It's no longer the 6 degrees. We also, if anybody follows Samantha, the sreed.mossy creek mushrooms account, that's Samantha's account, like her business account, but she on Instagram, and she absolutely, like, she showed, we had this gigantic series of icicles running down one of our hoses where our pipe leaked. It swelled up enough that it leaked, and then it leaked until it just completely froze up. But we had icicles that were, I don't know, feet high dripping off this line. So it really, really, this cold, I had to run so much propane and water just to keep everything from freezing up and to keep our production going. So breeding, baby. Thank you both for both. Thank you for both of you guys' times. Appreciated it. Oh yeah, I'm super excited. Like I said, yeah, hell yeah, Dr. Ed in the house. I'm going to run out, like I said, about 15 minutes or so. Also, anyone who's joining us on Instagram, get your butt over to YouTube if you want me to be able to see your comments and stuff. That's the best place to join. Best place to join is either YouTube or X. Looks like we don't actually have anybody on X right now. That's pretty unusual. We normally have half our audience on X, but yeah, I'm super excited to have Ed on and talk mushroom breeding. This is going to be a kind of probably an in-depth episode. I'm going to try to keep from getting too technical because Ed and I can always talk privately when we want to go super technical. But I want to make sure that we, this isn't just for the mushroom breeding experts or something like that. I would definitely want this to be something that anyone can enjoy. So we'll go into some technicals, and then we'll probably back off, and we'll probably go into some technicals. I'm going to talk for just a few more minutes while the audience continues to build, maybe 2 or 3 more minutes, because it's still climbing. And then we'll bring Ed on. Plus, YouTube gets really weird if you like to talk about any of the things that Ed's known for in the first 10 to 15 minutes. Once you get past that in a live stream, it's usually pretty safe to cuss or do anything else. Though I know I was watching his live stream yesterday, and he was talking about how he's going to try to watch his mouth for me. I see you smiling, Ed. Yeah, warmer weather's a blessing. Put some questionable popcorn on the compost pile. Stay warm and rain. There you go. How far out are you on your dates for classes? So right now, Travis, for the mentorships, like I said, we got 50% off for anyone who purchases it by tomorrow. As far as classes out, February's full. I've got a couple of people in October, and then a couple of people trying to book up the rest of October. October is always our busiest month with mentorships. It gets booked out first thing. And I don't normally take mentorships through January. So February is full. March, I think, is completely empty. May have 1 week taken up. And the summer, people usually wait on the summer for some reason until like right when school ends. So we got a little bit of time for your summer ones, but not for the discount. So Edward Grand, hello everyone. Glad to see y'all here. Happy to talk about anything mushrooms. Yeah, make sure you guys bring on the questions because Ed's expertise is something that we really, really, really want going on. I've never heard of Dr. Ed Grand. Now I try to follow the live and make a list of everything I can. Read or listen to him. Great find. Absolutely, man. Someone mentioned to me one time, they're like, hey, Ed Grand mentioned you on his show. And I'm like, who was Ed Grand? And I feel kind of bad that I didn't know, but then he showed me and I was like, oh shoot. So I do watch his live. Actually, I watch his live streams probably more than I do almost anyone else's at the moment, just because I get so little time. Please go tactical. I think you mean technical, or do you mean tactical? We can talk tactical mushrooms. Maybe Ed's got some ideas on tactical mushrooms. That'd be really neat. But I think you mean technical. That was probably autocorrect. We'll definitely get into some technicals. Howdy, Mush fam. What's up, Herbie? One Herbie. Hey, Doug. I see it. What conditioner do you use? It's called Olay de Andrew. I use a shampoo and I don't use conditioner. Even though conditioner is better. Appreciate y'all boys. Much love, Myco family. Finger red number 1. I don't know what that means, but needle juice fungi. That's a neat name, and I like your logo. That is very interesting. You see like some conidiophores there, and I see some caps from the Basidio mycota. You may have even have some sac fungi there. I like that. So, all right, guys, we are now 15 minutes in, which means that it is time to bring on. Oh, how do I do this again? Bring on Dr. Ed Grand. Hey, Ed.
Hello, how are you doing? Do our second introduction.
Do what?
You guys don't know that we usually talk a few minutes before these things start, so it's kind of weird when you.
Yeah,
it's
you're
kind
like,
of
hey.
like the pretend, like,
The
nice to talk to you, Andrew. 5 minutes
calling out
ago.
my age.
Oh, I've had to like sometimes not connect with people like more than 10 minutes before the podcast before the live or whatever, because we'll have like a 30-minute discussion and then it's like, oh, hi, what are we going to talk about? And we're 30 minutes into a discussion and gosh knows what the heck we're talking about by then. And
No
then
kidding.
everybody's just like, what the hell are you talking about? Like,
Right. The live stream thing is kind of a weird thing for me, anyways. Before we get too far into that, though, would you mind giving yourself a small introduction? I gave you a slight one earlier, but let me hear a little bit more about your expertise.
sure, yeah. I thought it was kind of funny that like a lot of people do not know who I am, and it's because I'm not really anything special. I mean, I was pretty much inspired to do YouTube by you, and pretty much you and Mycology kind of forced me into it. Like I saw your videos, and I was like, "That's really cool. Like I want to do something like that." But I know this is hard to believe, but I'm kind of an introvert, and I'm really I was having a little bit of a performance anxiety when I saw all the names. I'm like, oh my gosh, everybody's here. Like they're gonna, like, oh, now I have to perform. I'm getting kind of older too, so performance anxiety is a thing.
Well, don't tell me that, Ed. I'm almost 40 now, so
Yeah. Well, we should
eat
be
more
careful.
cordyceps, right? That's
Yes, that could be a new a tactical mushroom that.
There we go, like that. Yeah,
I think the Chinese already did that, though. I think they got lots of solutions for that. But yeah, I'm originally from Michigan, so yeah. Also, I grew up in the woods hunting and fishing. So we can go tactical too if you want to watch a lot of Hitchcock. What is he? Hitchcock 45, Hickok 45. I watch a lot of his videos. So
Michigan,
I think
the Tennessee of the North.
pretty much, yeah. I lived in Knoxville for 4 years, and it was amazing how similar people were. The accent's a little bit different. I mean, at least East Tennessee. I don't know about the rest of the state, but yeah, similar idea.
Yeah,
But
you get three distinct accents from Tennessee. You've got the East, Middle, and West. It's like three completely different cultures.
yeah, totally. The culture is different too. I mean, it's like it's like an 8-hour drive from end to end. So yeah, it kind of makes
Yeah.
sense here. But yeah, I'm from Michigan originally, and I went to U of M for 4.5, 5 years. I did the like community college first for 2 years, and so it kind of put me a little bit behind on a few of my classes. So I had to go. I think it was 4.5 years, maybe it was five. I don't remember because it was like so long ago. But yeah, then I worked in a lab for like so I have an engineering degree, so I'm chemical engineering. That was what I did my undergraduate in. Never worked in it. I did graduate, but I just never. I've got that really expensive piece of paper over there. It's about this big that cost me like $50,000. And yeah, it's pretty unimpressive considering the cost of it. But yeah, so then I worked in a lab for 3 years on the U of M medical campus, and so I worked for a gastroenterologist. And during that time, I realized I didn't want to do medicine. It was a little bit too much human interaction for me. I was never,
Gotcha. Yeah,
yeah, it was like he would come back from dealing with patients, my boss, and he would tell us all about it. He'd come back with x-rays of people who had like swallowed like glasses and pens and like all kinds of weird stuff. Like I don't know if I want to deal with those kind of people. But yeah, so I got bored basically, and one afternoon, it was Friday, and you remember Netscape?
I do. I remember
Yeah.
Netscape. Yeah.
That was like the Google Chrome of like 1995 or whatever. And yeah, it might have been a little later than that. It would have been, yeah, that would have been in 2000, I guess. So yeah, I decided I was bored, and I just literally, I think I typed something into Netscape like mushroom research for graduate school or something, and it popped up. UT popped up. Also, UBC, like University of British Columbia, and I think the University of Toronto. And I just happened to email Ron first. Ron was my advisor, Ron Peterson. And I just happened he I don't know if I emailed him first, but he responded first. And like I think it was Monday I was down there seeing the campus. And I think the next Friday, it was either I don't remember if it was Friday or Monday, but it was within a week I was down there signing a application form. And when I signed up, I didn't know what the difference between a master's and a PhD was. So I was like, I don't know. I just ticked the top box, which was master's. And after I talked to him for 2 or 3 days, we went over to the Smokies and collected a bunch of mushrooms. Well, it was pretty dry, but we collected some mushrooms, and he could see that I knew my stuff. Like I'd been foraging in Michigan since I was like 2 years old, and I was involved in some like the one main mushroom club up there, the MMHC, I think, the Michigan Mushroom Hunters Club. And so I was inspired by a couple guys and a couple girls that were in there. This like older woman named Marty. She was Ken Cochran. He used to be the head of NAMA long time ago. Kenneth Cochran. I think he's gone now, but and his wife Marta. I don't know what her real name was. Everybody called her Marty. And so Marty, she was kind of like she was a very interesting older woman. She had weird things, like she was allergic to like Sowillis, and it was like kind of strange things, but she knew a heck of a lot about mushrooms. And before that, I worked with Bob Schaefer a little bit. Robert Schaefer, he was the curator of the University of Michigan Herbarium.
Okay.
And he like one day I just walked in and I was like, can I look at your like type specimens? And he's like, no.
No.
He's like, no, but you can look at these other random 80 million mushrooms we have in these like cabinets. And he just like gave me a microscope and like some Melzers and a few other stains, and it was like, yeah, there it is, like do whatever you want. And then he disappeared, and then I just kind of was like, I don't know what to do with this microscope. But I was introduced to the microscope and its utility in mycology, which when you go and you're looking at all these field guys and you get to a genus like Clitosavy or something, or Tricholoma, and you're like, or polypores, and you're like, I don't know what this stuff is, I need a microscope. But I didn't want to buy a microscope. Back then they were probably $1,000 even then. And so I'm kind of like mixing all this stuff up. I'm sorry, you're bringing back some memories for me here. I normally don't do intros anymore because people kind of know my crap already. But yeah, so I ended up down in at UT in Knoxville, and I did
Was
that for
Dr.
4 years.
Matheny active back then, or
He was a few years before me.
Okay.
Brandon, right? Brandon
Matheny? Yep.
Yeah, I think Matheny is the way you.
They may be. I don't know.
Yeah, he was over at North Carolina for a little while, and then I don't know where he went from there.
He's at UT now. They have the Dr. Matheny lab.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so he's at UT, and then I can't remember her name. She now runs their biodiversity program. I can't remember her name all of a sudden.
Karen Hughes.
Karen Hughes, I think it is it. Yep.
Yeah, that should be it. I don't know what happened to Ron. I don't really communicate with those. I did get a Christmas card from Karen, but Dr. Hughes. If you ever meet her, call her Dr.
Dr. Hughes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I emailed Dr. Matheny, and he was pretty short, and he basically just handed me off to her. And then she took, like, she was so patient and took care of me, and like, and I was like, back then I was a snot-nosed, know-nothing, thinking like, oh, I can help because I have a pasteurizer, like maybe I could offer them something. But now she, basically now that I told her I was into polypores, and there's oh crap, now I can't remember his name. I'd have to look through my emails, but she got me in contact with the local USDA's polypore expert. Like basically he's a tree pathogen expert, but because that's how they treat polypores.
Mark Wyndham, maybe.
It may be Wyndham. I can't remember exactly. I'd have to look it up.
This
again.
was 20 years ago. These people may not be around anymore. I'm not really sure. I'm 50 now, so this is they were
Lindner. It's Daniel Lindner. Lindner.
Yeah.
So
I've been gone for 20 years, so I pretty much finished my PhD, and like literally like 3 days later got on a plane to Thailand.
Really?
And I was, because I had already had a job here. So when I first got to Thailand, I worked for about 2 years up north in Chiang Mai. And so Karen, I can call her Karen because she told me I could, but Dr. Hughes, she that was after like 3 years though.
Right.
But she knows her and Ron were basically like my second parents.
Oh, gotcha.
But
It
yeah,
actually
she's
bothers
got.
me to call you Ed, but I've been doing it because everyone else does
Please
it.
call me Ed. Yeah, please
But
call me
my
Ed.
grandfather, he didn't literally beat it, but he basically beat it into me. You call a doctor by the doctor.
Oh no, please call me Ed. I feel awkward when people call me doctor. It's a strange thing. I grew up really like poor, man, and like I was the first person in my family to go to college, kind of thing. Like I don't know if doctor really suits me.
Fair enough.
But yeah, she's got Karen. She's got a lot of links to Thailand. Her sister lives over here, and so she's got like I don't know. I think she's been over here quite a few times to visit her sister, and so came over here to Thailand, I was trying to find new species,
Hmm.
and I was up in the rainforest. I was doing bioprospecting like you do, and
Yep.
I was basically doing that up north here in the mountains. But it's become so populated, even up in the mountains here, that anything new that you would find is probably not really new. It's just something you don't know about.
Right.
Maybe it was written up in the Chinese literature or some other language that you can't understand. So it was kind of I was kind of like the manager of this lab, and it was this kind of mess. I don't even want to get into it, but after that, I just got kind of bored again, and I was like, let me go down to Bangkok maybe, and my friend, she found an ad in the classifieds in like the Bangkok Post, and was like, oh, this university's hiring, and I was like, well, I don't think I can get a job at the university. And then yeah, literally when I was walking out of the interview, they were like, wait, and that created a whole new life for me basically. And I was teaching for 18 years at the university.
Oh, dang.
Chemistry, botany, few random things like the history of science, and a couple math courses here and there.
And this was which university?
I'd rather not say.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Yeah,
All good.
I don't work there anymore, and yeah, I'd rather not say.
Roger that.
There's a lot of things in the active world going on now that
I believe it. Yeah.
it's better if people can't track me down.
I think that's probably wise. So,
Yeah,
I mean, there's
yeah.
people, there's just a lot of reason to be good and cautious with it. It seems like,
Yeah. People are smart these days. They're
oh, yeah, well, smart and then wide reaching in a way that they were not before. But, you do have to be really cautious with a lot of stuff. I know, like, heck, I live in East Tennessee, and as you know, it's freaking like 20 years behind everywhere else. So that's cool because we can always see trends coming. But like my county was a dry county till 10 years ago. So like that's
Oh yeah, I remember that coming down from Michigan. I'd drive up to go visit, and then when I'd come back down, I remember I think it was the last county in Kentucky. I'm like, man, I need to get some beer. Like,
Yep.
Knoxville was okay, or Knox County,
Yep.
but it was like there was I think 2 or 3 counties there, somewhere between Kentucky and Knoxville, that were like dry.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, I
It's
got
pretty
another
much
hour
everywhere
to
surrounding
drive.
Knoxville until recently. Now, like Morristown opened up, and so Jeff County, we were just kind of like this island of dry county, and all the other counties that were loosening up, and they were all making tons of money. So Jeff County was finally like, oh, that's right, we can tax this. So,
Yeah, exactly.
but
It's like when people in Michigan used to drive down to Ohio to buy fireworks. It was like, why don't you just? And they'd go over to Toronto. I mean, not Toronto, Montreal, or Windsor,
Windsor.
right across the border. It's been a long time. Go over to Windsor because they had I think you could drink when you were 19, and they had like topless bars or whatever.
Oh, gosh,
It was like.
college age dream, I guess.
Yeah, it was. It was an hour away, and that was back. You didn't really need a passport to cross the border. It was just like, oh, you got a Michigan ID, driver's license. Like, yeah, come on back. Half drunk, and God knows what's in the trunk, but they're like,
Oh,
yeah,
gosh.
whatever, welcome home.
Samantha's like over here, like, I can't believe he's saying this.
Oh, yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
you're like,
You
this
should
was
listen
20
to some of my lives, Samantha. I got all kinds of secrets I expose to the world.
She's heard plenty from just overhearing me. So, like I'll be listening to it, and she'll come in and be like, "Oh, are you listening to Ed?" I'm like, "Yep." So,
Oh yeah.
I'm really sheltered too in a lot of ways, and then plus my family, there's a good chunk of my family, policemen, sheriffs, things like that. So that's just not something that you do.
Yeah.
half her family is like sheriffs, judges, law enforcement of one type or another, and then the other half is the side that those guys go after. So,
It's a love story.
I know it's funny. I've had friends on both sides of the law too. It's like a weird thing. Yeah, you're at family gatherings or Thanksgiving or whatever, and you just don't talk about certain things with certain people. But
yep.
you're out there in the garage having a beer, having a smoke, whatever, and somebody walks in, you're like, ooh. Wonder what they overheard.
That's always my family dinners. You're there and you're always like, you're inside, everything's chill, really conservative. You walk outside and the breeze comes the right way, and you're like, wait a minute, where did so and so and so and so go?
Yeah.
Like, I know where they're at.
Exactly. Yeah, that's Uncle Bob.
Uncle Bob, that's right.
Out behind the shed, looking for your kids. Like, where are my kids? Are they out there with Uncle Bob?
No. What's funny though is that you have a lot of really good people on kind of both sides, and you have some really corrupt, really bad people on both sides. Like, so for me, it's just you have good morals, you've got good character. I really don't care, as far as like, as long as you're not out murdering someone, but you leave me alone, I leave you alone.
Yep.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I've struggled with it. But everybody got wrapped up in the whole like 1980s and 90s, and I mean, it's still an issue going on. I watch all the documentaries about what's happening in the U.S., and it's like frightening to me. I grew up. I had a shotgun in my hand when I was 8 years old. But and I grew up trapping and hunting. So, but man, the level of like gun stuff in America after not living there for 20 years, it kind of freaks me out. I'm like, man,
there's a bit of it for sure. Around here, it doesn't really. It's not much around here, but I mean, there's a strong gun culture around here. You always seem to see those things in places where there's not quite as strong of like you're talking about. Like, I think I was 10 years old the first time I went and shot skeet. I was younger than that before I was shooting the 22. So, my grandfather drilled safety and responsibility into my head, and
same.
Yeah. And then boot camp did that even further.
Yeah, well, I always say, like, if you know what a 12 gauge does to like a pumpkin, like you're not gonna be very likely to point it at somebody. I see people here with their airsoft like Glock 19s and stuff, and they're literally like pointing them at each other, and I'm like, don't do that. I know it's got a big orange like end piece on it, but it's like, you just don't do that at all.
We actually had my son was
into
airsoft.
Kid.
Huh?
So put your eye out, kid.
Put your eye out, kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Collier was walking into the shop, and he was at this age, and like trench coats are the coolest thing ever. So he was wearing a trench coat, and he was walking in carrying an airsoft rifle. And it was just into the warehouse, but somebody called in an active shooter from, like, I guess they were driving by. So, SWAT team shows up at the shop. Like, they just rush in, and you're like, no. Like, thankfully, they were confused about where they were going. So they actually went to the wrong place first, and a deputy showed up at our place in tactical gear. And he was like, he just kind of walked into our warehouse, and he was like, is there a shooter here? And Samantha went, I hope not. Like,
I thought it was him.
Yeah. And he's like, what is this place? We're like, it's a mushroom farm, which of course is the weirdest thing you can say to a cop.
I was like, is this like supposed to be an extreme sense of irony, or are you playing a joke on me? Or what?
But once he found out what it was, he went out there. The SWAT team shows up. He goes out there and he's like, all right, we're all good. Like, but they evacuated a factory on the other side of the hill because they thought it was on the other side, so it was
gosh.
Yeah, it was
we had
crazy.
an officer show up. Was it Tuesday? They were doing CPR classes next door.
And somebody called in saying they were like, they called in, but then didn't give hardly any information. But then we found out it's because the people next door were doing CPR training, and the people saw bodies in the floor. And it's just like, oh my gosh, I wish people would just mind their own business. Okay, we're getting off topic on that, though. We'll have to pull it back to mushrooms before I lose my audience.
I do like sometimes 5-6 hour live streams. So we get distracted.
Yes, I have not made it through a single one of those completely yet. I'll be honest. I've kind of skirted through them, but
I know I never intended to have them go that long.
Rogan.
Ed Rogan.
Yeah. Well, usually I'm glad you mentioned the pee breaks. I've been drinking Coke. It's like 4 a.m. here, so I've been
Yep.
drinking like Coke for the last six
Wow.
hours.
I've got a
So, but
couple of
I
commercials
slept
for
till
us.
like 6 p.m. So
Okay.
I try to schedule. I've got a really weird, mushroom farming. They don't stop growing. Like
No.
I had to harvest at 10 p.m. and I
Yep.
was
It's
taking
true.
spore swabs, for like a half hour. And so sometimes I'll get up at 4 in the morning to like take photos and
Right. What time is it where you're at right now?
right now
4
4 a.m.
a.m.
4:30. So
So
we're
you're literally
12.
12 hours. You're literally on the
Yeah, yeah.
opposite side of the world from us.
Yep, with
Yep.
EST and no daylight saving, or was it daylight savings? Well, I always forget which
I
one.
can't remember.
Yeah, now we're
Um,
12. It's perfectly 12.
Perfectly 12. Yeah, because I was going to say it's 4:36 p.m. here. Um, so you went to Thailand. Did you go to Thailand specifically for
Mushrooms.
mushrooms? Okay.
Yeah,
And
not the typical things that I often get. When you say you live here for 20 years, people always get the stereotypes. Dude, I was not into that like at all when I came here. I
mm,
actually had a Thai girlfriend in Tennessee, and yeah, she ripped my heart out. So I was like not into the females right
not into
then.
the
I was just
passport
like,
bro
no, no,
stuff.
no, no, hell no, 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 no. I was like, let me go live in the mountains by myself,
I've
and
actually got a
and
friend
that's all.
who went to Thailand. I mean, he only was there for a couple of weeks, and people find out that and they're like, "Oh, he went there for that," and he's like, "Actually, no, he just got on a motorcycle and traveled around the countryside." Because he was like, Thailand ended up being one of the most beautiful places he's ever been his entire life. So,
I'd
Oh,
say.
it's incredible. Yeah, it's kind of one of those secrets. I don't want to know no secret, but it's because people associate it with other things. That's unfortunate because this is by far the best country I've been to.
mm,
I've lived here nonstop for 20 years in the same town for like a long time. So
interesting.
it's got there's not anything really negative about it. The weather. It's like really cold now. It's like 65 Fahrenheit. So it's the winter time now. It's normally up near 90 or 100 though.
Good
But
Lord.
it's in the daytime it gets still warm. It goes up to like 85 today, I
No,
think, and then it
that's too
drops
hot
down
for
to
me,
like
man.
65. Well, I got 4 air conditioners, so
Oh, fair enough.
it's not too bad.
No, I was gonna say like if it's above 65, I'm pretty warm. So
It's rough, but you just start sweating, and drink a few more beers or whatever, you'll be fine.
there you go. That'll replenish it.
Just makes you not pay attention. And you can walk around in like shorts and a t-shirt all year long, pretty much. So, everybody's sweating and smelly and whatever.
I guess that works. That works just fine, right?
Right.
As long as everybody's doing it, then you're not singled out. But see, I'm a
Yeah.
fat guy, so fat guy sweat. Fat guy sweat is a different kind of sweating. So
Dude, there's lots of like large white guys here. Trust me.
oh, I believe it.
It's-
So when you get there, I mean, I assume so. We're like 40 minutes in, so I feel pretty safe to talk about anything at this point. But when
Sure.
you went there for active mushrooms, right?
No, actually, I didn't.
Okay.
So I came here to study lentinus. That's what I did my PhD.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. My PhD was in lentinus tigrinus or tigrinus.
Yeah.
I think people call it the what do they
Tiger
call it?
sawgill?
Sawgill or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, yeah. So and I was so I kind of wanted to do something that was relevant to edibles for my PhD, but I didn't want to do anything too like agaricus or anything like that.
Right.
So I was looking around, and I asked around. I'm like, can you give me an idea? And he was just like, no, that's your job. Like, figure it out. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I know all these, like, I've like field identification. I'm quite good at that. Like I can name pretty much any mushroom in North America. I know what genus it is, and but coming out of species, that's a little bit tricky these days. But yeah, I was like, I don't know, man. I want to do something that's kind of related to edibles, but not exactly something that would be like commercially thing. I wasn't really. I'd grown cubes when I was in college, but that was 10 years before I went to graduate school, and obviously I couldn't do anything active for that. So it was
Right.
like, like back then, I feel kind of. Oh yeah, I can hear Samantha's headphones. Some
Oh.
of some of the stuff.
You had your headphones up there, so it was echoing.
Oh yeah, it's just hard to concentrate
for sure.
I'm sorry.
She's a bad habit of putting them like right there.
I know. We were talking
Yeah.
about the audio problems before. Yeah, there's a plethora of audio problems that can occur. But yeah, no, I came here to study. I thought to maybe find some new species of Lentinus. When I got here, I realized that they eat Lentinus here. There's like Lentinus polycrois, Squarulochelus.
Actually, I'm familiar with that one. Yeah.
That's a
Yeah,
mouthful.
conchatus. Yeah, it's a messy. There's a squarulosis and there's a squarulochelus too.
What was the one? What was the one that we just harvested in Florida, Samantha? Do you remember?
Oh,
The fringed sawgill. I can't remember the scientific name now.
oh,
It was the fringe.
polycrinitis.
Polycrinitis. Okay.
Crinitis or crinitis. There's a couple. So that's what I was doing. There's about in Pegler's monograph and another guy named Corner. They worked over here in Southeast Asia. And so Pegler actually separated them into two genera, Panis and Lentinus. And this other guy, Corner, put them all in the genus Lentinus. I said that backwards. Corner was the one who separated them. And then so my job was to basically figure out if DNA sequences could be used to put them all together or separate them. So I very quickly learned about lumpers and splitters. And I'm more of a lumper these days, but when you're a graduate student or you're trying to publish papers, you tend to be a splitter.
Yeah.
Because
Well, explain the
fine.
difference between those, just so people know. I know what you mean, but
So a lumper would be somebody who would take, so let's say you've got like say a milk mushroom like a lactarius and you've got slightly different colors of it. So you've got a red one and a yellow one and a white one. A lumper would be more likely to put those on this in the same species because they maybe Lactarius deliciosus. And say somebody it's normally kind of orangish, you know. So what if you go out one day and you find a white one? A lot,
Right.
the splitters would say, well, that's a different variety and maybe even call that alba. So that's Lactarius variety alba, and some people might even elevate that to a species. Whereas the lumpers would say, no, that's just Lactarius deliciosus. That's
Gotcha.
just the normal milk cap. So they would lump them all in the same species, and then you get to this like this taxonomic differentiation between like what makes a new species. And how do you separate a species from a variety from maybe a strain? And it just goes through that whole hierarchy of, species, genus,
That's tough.
family,
Right.
order. It sucks.
I mean,
it's
kind of
not-
like what is it like? You got the pearl oyster Pleurotus austriatus, and then you've got the blue oyster Pleurotus austriatus variant columbinus, or
Yeah.
sometimes just known as Pleurotus columbinus. So
Oh, pinks are
Exactly.
like that too.
do I?
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah,
have the
there's-
Deja Moore, and then you have the
Yeah,
ones.
those two. I'm not actually sure what the difference between those species are on the pinks, but
So that's what Ron did actually over at UT, but he did it about 10 years before I got there. Him and another guy, his name's Andrew. I can't remember his last name right now. Another Andrew.
there's a lot of us.
Lots of Andrews, yeah. And I'm fading. Methuen, Andrew Methuen.
Oh, I think
Yeah,
I've
he
actually
did,
heard of him.
he did work with Anokis, and then another couple people did the Pleurotus, and some other people, I think they did a little bit with Shiitake too. But yeah, there's a paper that it's called Species and Speciation, and then it's got like a longer title. But that was written by Ron and Karen, and they basically in that paper they go through the whole biological species, morphological species, and what we would have used back then, the ITS, the phylogenetic species concept. This was 30 years ago when back then ITS was like pretty cutting edge.
Yeah,
So what people would call barcodes these days, I think most people refer to them as barcodes.
that's We had Josh McGinnis on last week, and the week before that, Alan Rockefeller. Both of them referred to it as barcoding. I mean, I think I heard Alan mention ITS a couple times, but it does seem
Yeah,
like people are
some-
more familiar with that.
Yeah, barcodes a lot easier to like. Most people don't know what the hell ITS. The internally transcribed spacer. They have no idea.
There we go.
what
Yeah,
that
I was going to
is.
say I can't remember off the top of my head. I remember reading it, but I haven't used it in so long that there's
It's
no reason to remember.
Burned in my brain. That little like, large subunit ITS1 5.8S ITS2 small subunit. It's and then you got the elongation factors and the RNA polymerase like RPB1 and 2 and all this crap. There's a couple other they use now. Some of the COX genes. It's a cytochrome oxidase. anyway, yeah, that's all pretty boring, to be honest. It's
I
funny
think
how
it's
it.
sweet.
I was just gonna say, the more boring, Samantha's gonna love it. So
I
So
would probably be more of a splitter than a lumper. It's like just
that well, yes, it's fascinating until you do it for like 4 years,
for
and it's like
sure,
one of those things like when you do a
sure.
job
yeah,
that you start off liking, and then after a while you really start to hate it, like making substrate or like, sterilizing grain or something like that. The first 100 times you do it, it's really
Yeah.
fun.
I will
And
say
then
I am
after,
so sick of slanting right now.
yeah,
I cannot wait for mushroom season to be back out in the field. And of course,
yep.
then when I'm out in the field for 2 months, I'm going to be. I cannot wait to get back in the lab and stop being hot and miserable and blah blah blah. So
Yeah, it's all about balance, right? You just got to
yeah,
make sure. I know that that's a big thing on the active side. A lot of people, they come in and they're really super enthusiastic for about 6 months or a year, and then they slowly fade away or just disappear completely. Or they maybe they end up in jail or something like that.
fair enough.
They just disappear, and then you don't hear from them. Sometimes they come back like 3 or 4 years later. Other times they just, you don't never see them again.
Gotcha.
Because it's a lot of the eight. I mean, this comes up a lot with there's a lot of ADHD people in the community, so
Oh
I've heard
gosh,
you
yeah.
talk about it a lot too. So
It's
that kind of
it's either
resonates with me.
autism or ADHD. It like brings you
Hmm.
to mushrooms big time. Really quick, somebody's got a question for us, but I also want to just take this opportunity to say, for those of you on Instagram and asking questions on Instagram, I don't see that unless I remember to go check it, and I don't remember to always go check it. So this question is from Instagram, but for you guys, please move to YouTube or X to watch the live stream. You'll be able to interact with us much faster. But the question is, and you probably know this better than I do, Ed, what about black pearl? Is it a species or a strain made by cross mating other Pleurotus species? Do you know?
I
Hybrid.
don't know
You don't
really.
know
See,
much.
I don't really know too much about the oysters and
I
the
know that it is a true
binoculars.
hybrid. Like they've done some work on it here in the states and proved that it is, but I don't remember what species they hybridized it with.
No,
Um,
that would be good to go look at that paper from Ron. I used to
mm,
know because, but when you get so focused on one genus or something like that, I don't really. It's hard to absorb all the other surrounding like stuff. It just becomes kind of like periphery stuff, like noise that you kind of ignore.
hmm
So I don't really know about the taxonomy of Pleurotus.
Yeah,
I haven't
Pleurotus
really.
is kind of a weird. Like I thought Hericium was kind of a nightmare, but it seems like I guess all the interest in lion's vein, the neurological, blah blah, blah, all that stuff. It seems like it's starting to get a lot of attention. And so I was like, oh, that's
Mhm.
interesting. And then I started just kind of digging into Pleurotus, and Pleurotus is wow. There's so many more species than I thought. Number one, and then number two, how the overlapping territories that those species share. It just makes it really, and
Yes.
it's not always easy to tell without DNA with some of these things. So,
Yeah, well, in introductions now, I mean, there's
mm,
people who are finding like some of these West Coast species in the U.S. because they take, somebody goes out to Oregon and they grab a clump of, wood chips or whatever and take them back to Michigan with them,
yeah,
Pennsylvania, and now you've got like cyanescence popping up in Pennsylvania, which is totally not its native habitat. And
right.
then you got somebody like Alistair McTaggart who publishes a paper like, no, it's not actually cyanescence, they're all subaeruginosa from Australia. And then so there's this whole species complex. So my one of part of the title of my PhD was the species complex Lentinus tigrinus,
hmm
because if you go down to like the Dominican Republic or you go to Cuba or Florida or maybe even somebody told me, gosh, what I forgot his name already, but he's doing a PhD. I think with David Hibbett or something. But anyway, he said they were in North Carolina too. That he's
Mm,
finding Lentinus tigrinus in North Carolina, which is way out. It's normally a tropical, subtropical species,
yeah.
but on the coast of North Carolina, he's finding these tigrinus, and the sawgill. Thomas Rule, that's his name. I think that's how
Mm,
you say his name, Thomas Rule or Roll.
I do
And
that.
yeah, he's
Where I'll
finding
forget.
these. Yeah, I know it's so hard with all the Latin names. It's hard enough people's names too. But yeah, they're all over the place. Like you guys have introduced like yellow oysters now, the golden oysters.
Hmm.
Like that's an Asian species,
Oh yeah, what
right?
was it? Russia, Japan, China, I think, are the ranges that it's typically
Yeah.
found in natively.
And pink what gemor is, that's a European species, right? But you find that probably out on the East Coast. Everybody's, shoot, I send off spores to like dozens of countries.
Yep.
So cubes are going to be everywhere if they're not already there. So,
Yeah, I would be surprised if there's a biome on this earth that doesn't now have cube DNA running around.
oh, I'm sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
a guy up north here, he sent me a picture and he thought he had found this like native cube. And then I realized when I looked at the picture, I'm like, that looks like a monotub that somebody turned over, like it was kind of rectangular shaped. And I was like, dude, that's somebody's grow. That's
That they
not
just
like,
dumped.
that's not a native species. Yeah. And you get oyster mushrooms all over the place. So that's why Ron and Dr. Hughes gave up on it, because they were having so much trouble sorting out the DNA. Even with DNA, you find an oyster
Yep.
mushroom in East Tennessee, and you just don't know what it is,
Yeah.
and you don't know if it's indigenous. So it's like, well, this doesn't really help. In fact, it kind of mucks up the situation, right? Because all of a sudden you find a golden oyster in Tennessee and you're like, well, maybe they're native here. And it's like, no, no, no. If you
No.
didn't know they were introduced from Asia through cultivation, you would be like, wow, this is really cool. Like it must be a new species. And then you got to think like, well, a bright yellow oyster mushroom, like nobody ever described this.
Right. You're right.
Like, it's like,
Well, and it's obviously spreading. So we found one. I've got two iNaturalist listings of golden oyster in Tennessee, and one was like half a mile from my shop, downstream of Mossy
Yeah.
Creek, right along the bank. And then last year, Samantha and I were biking to the lake, and we stopped at this one spot we loved to stop and like play around at the creek and whatnot. And as we were going down there, it's maybe another half to three quarters of a mile downstream of my first sighting. There was one there. And this one had like a gigantic tree that had fallen over, and the entire thing was covered in golden oysters. Which incidentally, 3 or 4 weeks before that, the entire log was fruiting this brown oyster, and then it fruited a golden oyster, the same log. So they were obviously living somehow, all together. But it obviously is moving downstream.
So yeah, you don't need to bother cloning it. You're like, yeah, I got that one already. That's
Actually, well, I did clone it because I
Back
thought, well,
at the
if
shop.
nothing else, it's an isolation of the genetics I was growing that naturalized and did well here. And it actually does do really well in our grow room here, better than some of the other stuff. It's not nearly as bright gold.
Bit
It's
more
definitely-
cold tolerant.
We're gonna end up going for 12 hours. I've already got like 8 things I want to talk about written down. If you keep bringing this up, there's like 3 things there I could go on for like an hour about. But yeah, it's interesting because that there could be one thing. Maybe the golden oyster next year, it's only going to be golden oysters. I've heard a lot of people say they're more aggressive, and that's why they're spreading so fast, which is a problem if it's nudging out the indigenous species, right?
If it is, I mean, we don't really know. Like I talking to Alan, there's just not. I know someone just came out. I think they did their thesis on it, but like still, there's just not really good. There's not enough data to know what it's really doing. It's not causing an ecological crisis. It's still fulfilling the same niche. It's the same insects seem to be attracted to it. So it's at least not destroying the ecosystem. It could be, and it makes sense that if it's taking up territory, it's lessening some of the biodiversity potentially. But
Could be. I'm not too. We got Burmese pythons and kudzu already, like so.
oh my god, iguanas in Florida.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Over here, you don't notice it in the tropics, but there's an invasive species here too. We've been moving plants around the world for millennia, so it's not like wheat's not really indigenous to Nebraska, But.
Right. But it does do awfully well there. So, or at least the varieties that have been bred there. So,
Well, that's what I wanted to I wrote it down, how we adapt these things to our particular grow systems, or they adapt themselves to a particular ecotype or ecosystem. I kind of find it quite fascinating. But yeah, we can maybe talk about other things first, because that could get deep.
well, we'll take a couple questions then real quick. Biometa Meta Tatter. In some space age utopian future, do you think we'll be able to biologically 3D print and modify a species of mushroom or other organism on demand? I mean, I don't really know what they mean by, sorry, but the
Why
thing
not?
by on demand, but I know that they're already working with 3D printing some DNA structures, but
I mean, we can synthesize DNA. The field of
yep,
synthetic biology is quite well established.
absolutely. Did you see where they made two new base pairs and then plugged that into an organism and
I
it
think
actually
so.
replicated and then they killed it immediately because they were afraid. They were like, we can't have this keep going.
Yeah, well, that's what I learned about when I was working in that medical research lab. We used to use kind of a lot of like radioisotope tagged
Mm-hmm.
molecules. So you would say to take an ATP and that one of those phosphates on there would be like radioactive phosphorus, like P32.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would quite frequently you would take like ATP and you whack off that last phosphate group and replace it with another one that's radioactive. And that's what we used to use back in the day to do like southern blots and northern blots and all this blot stuff.
Okay.
So we'd use them as
That's
tags.
great.
Now they use a lot of fluorescent things, but it used to be radioactive isotopes.
Yeah, actually, no feet. What's his name? Byron came from University of.
Pi-
No
I
feet.
Pikel?
can't remember. He's from Pikefold, Kentucky, but they're doing some research there. But he was telling us about the fluorescence, about how they could actually put it to, tag the organism with it, and it will actually proliferate through the culture. It will replicate it, and then they're able to trace.
Oh yeah. Yeah, those fancy micrographs you see in some of
Hmm.
the old like you see the reds and the greens, all of that kind of stuff is pretty well developed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a huge topic. But you know the analogs of base pairs. That's the kind of idea behind Sanger sequencing,
Mm.
Sanger DNA sequencing,
Yeah.
is that you use instead of a DTTP or a DATP or whatever you use a dideoxy, and so the whole polymerase reaction will terminate, and so you end up with these different lengths of DNA. And then you get
Okay.
that little ladder thing. I don't know if anybody remembers that stuff, but
I
that's
remember
the
the latter, but I a lot of this stuff is hard. It's like I'm still trying to figure it out, so I'm a little cloudy on some of it, but
it all changes so
right.
rapidly now. Nobody does Sang. I mean, the technique is based on Sanger sequencing, but it's a little more sophisticated these days. But I used to
Hmm.
work in labs with these Korean dudes who would sit there and run these like acrylamide gels that were like 2 feet high, and they'd just sit there and be like
Good
A T C
lord.
G T, but they'd say it in like a Korean accent, so it'd be like G Tita or Titi Chita, and so they always put like weird like vowels at the ends of things, and it was
Yeah.
it was funny. I'd sit there and listen to them for hours, and then they'd read it back to read off like 300 or 400 base pairs, and they would do that every day, like 5 days a week, and it was like, oh my god, you guys are gonna go insane.
I don't have that kind of focus. The ADHD is strong with me. So, another question. Hey
I
guys and
have the
girls.
focus.
Oh, yeah, Samantha could do that and be happy as long as you left her alone, gave her some music and some caffeine. She's good.
Don't talk to me.
Just be like, don't touch me. Don't talk to me. Hey guys and girls, great to see you again. So, question for Ed: what kinds of edible mycorrhizal fungi have you found in Thailand,
Oh,
if
there's
any?
tons of them. There's so many. In fact, most of the edible stuff that they sell is from the forest.
Hmm.
So they have a lot of what they call diptocarps over here. They're in the oak family, they're like the oaks of Asia, and so
Okay.
there's a lot of boletes and a lot of things. The milk mushrooms and some of the we get chanterelles. We get like orange chanterelles. They're probably not Siberius or whatever it's called now,
Yeah.
but we get the black trumpets. I've never seen Mayataki, but Sparasis. A few of these
Okay.
things I'm not sure. Like Sparasis might not be exactly mycorrhizal, but there's a lot of boletes and a lot of coral fungi, like the Romarias and Clavarias that may or may not be saprobic mycorrhizal. I don't know.
Yeah.
Tons and tons. There's limited forest these days because there's not really any old growth forest in Thailand. They've cut the entire country's pretty much been leveled at one point or another in the past 300 years.
Oh,
And
dang.
so there's second growth forest, but you get an oak tree that's 30, 40 years old. It's probably not a lot going on, but once it gets to like 100 years old, then you get a lot of stuff going on there, right?
I mean, there's not a lot left in Tennessee, or at least East Tennessee either. I don't know about Middle and West, but I think we have in East Tennessee maybe 2 stands that are publicly accessible. I don't know about private, but there's the Albright Grove up in the Smokies, and then there's Fall Creek Falls over on the Cumberland Plateau. And both of those are pretty small patches. They were just difficult to log, so they logged everything around them and then left these stands.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the same here. It's the very top of the mountains that are still, because they just couldn't get to them very easily.
But my goodness, man, like the diversity we saw, which is plus like the old growth at the Albright, you get up there and as soon as you hit the old growth, you can tell because all of a sudden the forest goes silent. It is perpetually dripping. And all like there's like no animal life. All the animal life is way, way, way up in the canopy or under your feet. And there are just mushrooms everywhere because it's like there's so much just rotting wood and debris that the ground is so spongy. You can walk it barefoot, that kind of thing. And so we've been bioprospecting the past 2 years up at the Albright Grove, selecting samples and stuff. And I found a 35 to 40-year-old agaricon that I'm thinking about trying to clone. I took a GPS tag of it, but didn't touch it because I wanted to make sure wouldn't hurt it when I cloned it.
Yeah, just don't put it on iNaturalist yet because
no,
go.
No, I'm not going to publish it at all. I was talking to people and they're like, yeah, I told a few different people, the USDA polypore expert and stuff, and I was like, can I sample that with and he's like, well, there's no protection against sampling it. He's like, and I said, well, I have the GPS coordinates, but I haven't published them and I don't plan to. And he said, that's a great idea because someone will go up there and take the whole thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's like back in the day when I'd go to the library to get some old chemistry journal on maybe synthesizing some interesting chemical, and the page is ripped out. So it says somebody paying 10 cents to Xerox it, they just rip the page out of some 100-year-old journal.
Yeah.
I was like, really?
That's
before the internet, so.
That's the tragedy of the commons, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fungi File says, any interesting cultivation techniques you find in Thailand, either commercial or small scale? And what about maybe not traditionally cultivated species that you see there?
Not really. You would think so because it's Asia, but literally, I mean, the whole world is one community now. In fact, the only thing they really do different here is they tend to have a lot of outdoor grows that are in like bamboo hut kind of things. But other than that, I mean, one of the big pushes now, I went to a mushroom farm a couple weeks ago. I think I told you about it. And they had your strains.
Yeah.
Like I have your strains sitting right there because I cloned them from the mushrooms they gave me. I paid like $20 for a tour and they gave me this big box of mushrooms. And it's like, these are all like Andrew's strains. And the guy who does the culture work wasn't there, but they were all just like really, really excited about all this cool new stuff they had. And this is not really new. This is all the same stuff. Yeah. So it was like, but I told him that and he didn't even it didn't register. A lot of people that are in the commercial cultivation sphere, they're not into taxonomy and they're not into nomenclature. To them, it's just another mushroom they can grow and sell.
Right.
So it's not really, they're looking for the best one that makes the most pounds or the most kilograms, and that's the one they want. And they'll name it based on what color it is. That's a pink oyster.
Yeah.
They don't know what Pleurotus gemor is, or they don't know what is a Pleurotus citrinopyliatus or whatever. They no, that's the yellow one.
No, what you said, that bad. Get gold.
But the problem with common names and scientific names, even in the the exotic and the active community these days, you get things like Cystidio duplicata or Ocrasio centrata, and you're just like, oh yeah, that's a mouthful. Can we just call them gnats?
Right. So I mean, so it was interesting because when I first started growing, there wasn't a lot of stuff on the internet yet. I'm talking 2008, 2009. So YouTube was there, but not there were like maybe 2 or 3 people. You had like Roger Rabbit. You had I can't remember that guy, Slee Stacks or something like that. I think that used to grow. This was like I said, 2009 or so. So it's been a while, and there weren't that many people on, but there were a few Indian, Southeast Asian growers that were like showing stuff, and I was sitting there going, "Well, I hear I've got people telling me you can't grow without a HEPA filter and blah blah blah." But then I see these people growing in bamboo huts and like literally building pasteurizers by like digging a hole down in a hillside and then making a firebox on the side, and they would literally do the fire up and then put the barrel over top the hole. And I was like, they could do simple stuff. So that's how I got started, was just kind of imitating stuff I literally saw from India and Southeast Asia, and then kind of incorporating it until I could afford to get equipment that made it easier. But
Yeah,
Clever.
same here.
well, thank you.
You know, but now it's so readily available. Like you can buy, like your what is that you're one of your sponsors, House of Hydro.
Oh yeah,
Those like 12 head ultrasonic humidifiers, they sell them here now. And it's like, wow, I saw it popped up on my online shopping thing on my phone, and I'm like, yeah, 12 head ultrasonic, and it's like $75, and it's like, wow. You know, one thing they do in Asia, they know how to like borrow ideas and make it cheaper. So a lot of these traditional farmers, they understand that they can get more product basically if they adapt some of these techniques. So I can buy an FFU, like a 2x4 FFU now, for like literally like $150. The same ones that I don't even. Yeah, it's just so cheap over here because we're close to China, right? So
yeah.
So I could buy a pressure cooker, like I don't know what it would be, like probably a 30-quart pressure cooker for like $80. Like
Yeah,
it's
like we've
On
got
tariffs.
a guy that's imported some of our strains and stuff. He's in Mongolia, and he was discussing how basically it's easier for him to get Chinese and Russian stuff than, you know, it's really, really difficult to get anything from the States. So we have to like, in fact, I think we sent him strains like 3 times, and the first 2 times, like the Mongolian officials, the customs officials, were like, "Oh, culture tubes. Let me open that up and like breathe in it or something and close it back up," and then shipped it back and then continued shipping it to him. And he was like, "You can't open this stuff," and they're like, "Yeah, we have to open it," you know. And he's like, "There's just no good way to get that kind of stuff through. Apparently, they don't have a lot of microbiology knowledge in the customs, the bureaucracy at least."
That's why I stick with the swabs. You know, I've done liquid culture a few times, and I've done plates. But you know, when you see something like this, if they see that going through customs, they're going to be like, "Oh, anthrax?
You're right.
Oh, COVID?"
Yeah.
Like, or something like that. Ooh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that word. But yeah, they're gonna be like, they're gonna.
Shut
I forget.
down.
Yeah, you're monetized. I'm not. I don't get any money
I'm
from
actually
YouTube.
not monetized right now.
Oh,
We've
Yeah,
not
so
been
we're
on
good.
a long time.
Yeah.
yeah.
In fact, I got really mad because I took the monetization off specifically so there wouldn't be commercials on my channel. And then YouTube, maybe a year or so ago, sent me a notice that, "Hey, we noticed that you demonetized your channel. Just so you know, we reserve the right. We're now going to play commercials on all of your videos, but you don't get any of the money because you demonetized." And now I'm literally waiting on a PIN number from them for like months so that I can remonetize and get it, because they don't want me to be able to remonetize, I guess.
God.
It sucks.
I know I started the process, and I wish I wouldn't have, because you know, once you start, you're like, "Oh, check this out," or whatever, and you
Yep.
click a few buttons, and you start this like process, and it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa,
It
like, I
becomes
didn't
a
want to do
huge
that.
thing. Like I wanted to be able to do super chats. So like while we're talking
Yeah,
here, someone could do a super
exactly.
chat and then like they like let them jump the line, that kind of thing. But real quick, Mike
That's
Grip
what
says,
I wanted to do too.
right,
I
yeah.
just wanted super chats. I didn't want to do this whole like monetization thing.
No, like screw that. What is the wet dry cycle you spoke about? What levels of humidity you keep for how long at what period in the cycle? So Mike, that was me. If you're talking about that short that I did, that is literally just talking about how I don't keep my humidity at 95% all the time. If I do that in my grow room, because I'm not doing like some commercial growers where you have a pinning, you have separate rooms and you're pinning your entire crop in one room and then, you know, getting the flush and everything else. Like, so I cycle my humidity from like 65% relative humidity to 95%. And I just put it on humidistat. It literally just does that on its own. I don't have a period in the cycle. I just let it do it. And I found that I got better quality mushrooms just by having that dry cycle. I removed a lot of the bacteria, And then it seems like my mushrooms got a better texture all of a sudden whenever I started having a small dry cycle through there. So
Yeah, I heard you mention that about the hericium, especially, right? Because
hmm
hericium kind of absorbs the, like ambient moisture.
hmm
I noticed that when I cook it, we can sometimes get hericium here, and when I cook it, it just like it's like a sponge.
Yep. Yeah. And
Yeah,
that's
I think I heard
ours is
Samantha mention that about butter, like it just
yep.
absorbs butter, and you're like, where did the butter go?
Oh yeah.
Like,
We did that. Like that was the first time we were cooking it, and like we like to cook together. So one of us will man the pan, and then we'll go cut something. The other one will be like, "Oh, I see that. I'm gonna stir that for them." So like I put butter in the pan and turned around, and Samantha was like, oh, "There's no butter in the pan," and put butter in the pan. And then I turned around, and I'm like, "Oh shoot, there's no butter in the pan." I put more butter in the pan, and so when we finally, my first time eating lion's mane, I literally took a bite, and it just went butter, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is like I can't like it's oil. It's nothing but oil, and I love butter,
yeah,
but I can't take butter
same.
sponge."
Yeah, it's too much. My dad used to take butter and put it on saltine crackers, but not like he would like get one of those quarter sticks and like cut off like
Like a
he,
wedge.
yeah, like a wedge, and he would sit there and eat a
Jeez.
whole stick of butter. I'm like, that is disgusting.
I saw Samantha's grandfather um, did like I went up to visit them. They're up in they were in northern Tennessee at that point, but they were from Kentucky. And while I was up there, like I grew up, my grandfather had 3 heart attacks, so he was on a no fat diet, no cholesterol, no blah blah blah. So I grew up. To this day, I can't eat country ham because it's too salty. But I don't like. I finally got to where I like a little bit of high fat. Her family, they're like lard in the biscuits. Oh, and you know what? To bake the biscuits, you're gonna spread a little lard on the biscuit, and then you're gonna put a big slice of fried bologna that was fried in lard, and then you're gonna and just everything. Like I could not hardly eat, and they were all like pushing food on me, and I'm like, this is so much lard. Like I feel like I'm going to die.
Yeah, I had a little bit of a culture shock whenever I saw the food cold for the first time. I was like, what is that?
Oh yeah, I got a quart of like rendered duck fat in my fridge. I bought like
that's so
kilo.
good.
It is, and I rendered down. Like here, they just sell duck skin, and so it turns into like crackling. So you just like
Yes.
render down, and it's like duck crackling, but you've got all that like rendered fat. And
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
just gonna do some wonderful things with that.
Duck fat fried potatoes are like the best thing ever.
That's funny. I made
French
PDA
fries.
the other day, and that's exactly what I did. I took
Really?
some of the, yeah, I made PDA. I used the water for the PDA, and then I like fried the potatoes in duck fat,
Yeah.
and they were delicious. I almost said the
Parmesan
F word there.
cheese.
They were effing
Fresh.
delicious.
That sounds really good. Actually, now you got me hungry for it. Now I'm gonna have to.
Dude,
Thankfully,
next time you make make PDA, man. The potatoes are already cooked.
I'll have to try that. I definitely have to try that. The wow,
Don't put salt in there. Remember, don't put salt in the water the first time.
Right. Well, see, I don't ever salt. Like when I found out people put salt when they boil spaghetti noodles or something like that, I was blown away. I was like, "You mean you could add salt to this?" Because like I said, I grew up with my grandfather, like low sodium diet. Like I don't even like sausage hardly. Like sausage is on like breakfast sausage can be too salty for me sometimes. Like I grew up on soy sausage and didn't even know that's what I was growing up on. So,
Oh.
Psych.
but
Yeah, that Jimmy
right.
Dean kind of stuff. If you
Yeah.
fry it too long, it gets incredibly salty. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I'm getting hungry.
Yeah, me too. They,
I ate like sushi like an hour ago, and I was like, "That's
I bet you get some good sushi there. My
I-
best
Well,
bio.
they sell it like on the street here. It's crazy.
Do there? I've heard
We
Thailand's
got
got like a ton of
everything
street
here.
food. Yeah, that's what Charles
yeah.
said when he came back. He was like literally every day, every meal, he would just go from like I'll get this from this cart, this from this cart, this from this cart, and like that was how he made meals. And I was like, dude, it sounds good.
it's
Like
crazy.
I plan to visit Thailand one day, Japan. Probably I don't have any plans to go visit China. Not that I would be against it, but Chile, Argentina, and Scotland and Ireland. And I want to bioprospect in all of those. But Mr. Denise, our premier bioprospector, I guess I call him, he's put in more samples than any other individual. The only other person is my business partner Ben and his wife. They've come close, but Mr. Denise is also he basically was born outside. So the other day he walks up. He's got this big cooler, and I was like, "Oh yeah, what's this gonna be?" And so he pulls it open, and it's a half a deer, all cut up into cuts and stuff. And I was like, "So like right before I got on here, I was eating vegetable soup with a deer burger in it. That's one of my favorites."
Oh yeah, I get a funny. I grew up. Yeah, I would wake up for school and there'd be like half a like end of a deer in our in our kitchen sink. So but
Mm.
we had some land outside of town and people would go hunt out there, and they'd just give us like the gut, the innards, the offal or whatever, and usually
Hmm.
like a back end of a deer, like some leg, and I'd walk down there and there's like a dead animal part in our like, kitchen sink, and it's like what are you doing? And I used to hunt squirrels, One of my funniest, I was at a foray, like a mushroom foray, and I made squirrel chili, and I labeled it squirrel chili, one of those potluck
Yep.
things. And it was a huge thing of chili, and I labeled it, and I put it on the table, and people like ate it. I went back like 15 minutes later, and it was all gone. I mean, this was like 2, 3
So
gallons of
good.
chili. They didn't believe me. They were like, that's not squirrel. That was like really really good. I was pretty good at work, cooking. I worked
Kicking it.
I lived in a co-op for a while, and so I had to cook for like 40 people. But yeah, the time I decided to make squirrel chili, I'm like, they're not going to eat this. I'm wasting like 6 or 7 squirrels to make this pot of chili, and I'm like, nobody's going to eat this. And then after I told them, I'm like, yes, that was real squirrel, like
That's
real
funny.
fox squirrels. They were like, some of them were like horrified.
Horrified.
Like,
Yeah,
what
I've
they
seen
just
that
told me.
before as well. Let's
You
take
ate
a
it.
real quick, about a minute and a half break.
Yeah, I got to pee too.
Yeah, me too.
Introducing the future of mycology, Dr. Silurian's elixir of mycelial mastery. This isn't your average culture mix, it's a revolution in a packet, crafted for the dedicated cultivator seeking unparalleled growth. Experience the visual alchemy of this masterful brew. As you mix 10 grams with 500 milliliters of water, watch the solution transform into a rich, amber spectacle, the hallmark of a nutrient-dense sanctuary for your burgeoning mycelium. This is where vibrant color meets vibrant life, setting our elixir apart from the ordinary clear liquid cultures. Prepare to be captivated. Mix 10 grams of Dr. Silurian's elixir with 500 milliliters of water, add a stir bar for thorough integration, and sterilize the blend at 15 psi for 45 minutes. Once cooled, introduce your favorite culture into this perfectly prepared, nutrient-rich environment. Watch in awe as the elixir works its magic, unveiling a mycelial masterpiece before your eyes. Choose Dr. Silurian's Elixir of Mycelial Mastery for a mycological adventure that's as visually enchanting as it is potent.
All right. Well, Ed will be back here in just a second, so I think his bathroom's further than mine is. Let's go through a couple of these things real quick. I've been looking at some Chinese literature. Most of the time, they refer to what most people like to call mutations as a problem caused by virus. What do you guys think? I'll bring Ed back in on that one, but that is a thing. Viral changes in mushrooms are a thing. Viral buildups in mushroom cultures and cell lines is a thing, and they can definitely call them. Yeah, exactly. And they cause mutations. You also have. I was reading about like certain things like shiitake is really well known for this, for building up when you have what are called lethals. So it is like lowers your ability to germinate the spores and things like that. And the best way to really get around that is to outcross. But Ed's back. Cool. So I can shut up and bring him back. All right, welcome back, Ed.
Yeah, I was. My bathroom is a little further than you.
That's what
I
we
drank.
That's what I said. I was like, oh, his bathroom must be further than mine.
Yeah, I've drank like a lot of Cokes too.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
guilty
this
on the
is-
coffee.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm getting more sensitive to it as I get older or what, but yeah, but viruses, yeah, I looked into this a lot. If you go into the agaricus literature, there's a couple websites. I think it's a Russian website. It says .ru, but it's written in English. But that might not be Russia anymore. That might be something else. But they have a part on viruses, and it's mostly for agaricus, and they list like maybe I think 10 viruses, but they have names like French virus and like virus X and things like this. And I don't think they're really well understood. I've
Yeah.
talked about this a lot. I think this is maybe, I know in the cannabis industry they have this hop latent viroid. and people are just starting to like really look into this and why it causes these reduced yields. I was convinced about 2 years ago that I was propagating a virus amongst my cultures because I was getting these really stunted fruits, and I think it was just environmental. I was not using the right substrate ratio at the time. I'd switched to doing shoe boxes instead of monotubs, and I had to adjust my ratios.
Yeah, I've noticed that when my nitrogen ratios are off and like high, I get stunted weird. Like you think, oh, nitrogen, good, big growth.
Yeah,
But more is not better.
yeah, it's counterintuitive, right? This happens a lot, especially with like agar plates, or auger plates. Too much nutrients is not a good thing.
Yeah.
Too much sugar and all this. Like I know you talk about enzyme blindness and all that stuff. All that stuff. Like more is definitely not better.
Yeah.
It's definitely there's sort of a limit. Maybe call it like a bottleneck. I heard another thing today, the law of minimums.
Yeah.
Earlier.
Actually, I bought that URL because I'm planning on doing another channel called The Law of the Minimum, which is basically an ecology one. But it is an agricultural principle, which is, what is it? The whatever a plant or organism needs that it has in the least will be the limiter for its growth. So it doesn't matter how much sunshine and minerals and stuff a plant gets if it doesn't get enough water, or if it's doesn't have enough magnesium, it's always going to be deficient. So
yeah.
What's the opposite of that one?
I forgot the name of the opposite of that one, but
yeah, in chemistry they call it like the limiting reagent or reactant or like a bottleneck. Like I just didn't know that term, but yeah, it's kind of like what we call a bottleneck in some other.
Well, yesterday you were talking about the sugars, the carbohydrates. And I really liked your explanation. Like I actually never thought about that, even though I guess I kind of knew it, but it's carbohydrate. So it's literally a carbon and a hydrate, right? Hydrogen. And I was like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. But you were talking about the sugars and everything. And then you talked about how, you got into the more complex sugars. And then you were saying how one of the wonderful things about, mushrooms and in particular the white rot species is they're able to break down these more complex molecules. And I actually wonder if that's really just what it is, if they've just evolved to be pretty lean, and that too much sugar just doesn't do any good. So
yeah, I think there's a whole bunch of stuff going on that maybe and they can survive in environments that would be not really good enough for other things like maybe bacteria like sugar, and maybe some other fungi or whatever organisms like a log. It's just like wood is not very nutritious to any other organism except for fungus. Like, and they need those enzymes to break them down. Well, I feel really special that you actually got any bit of information from my lives.
I don't feel like you need to feel special, man. Like every time I watch the videos, I learn.
They're really informative.
It's crazy to me. Like, I don't know. But I get it. Cause I'm at the same time, I'm like, oh, so-and-so, they watch me. I feel special. And it's like, we're all just a bunch of people, but we kind of forget that. So like, I don't know. Like I know nothing. Like I really know nothing. And the nice thing about mycology is we all know nothing, though.
I was talking about this earlier. It's funny when you start doing videos. Some people like when you first start doing them, everybody will be like, "Oh, he sounds like a know-it-all. Like, what does he think he knows everything?" And then you're like, "No, you're not understanding this. The reason why I'm talking about this stuff and talking to other people is because I don't know shit."
Yep.
Like the more you learn in life, the more you realize you don't know anything. I don't know jack about jack.
That was literally my grandfather always taught me. If you want to learn about something, teach it, and then you will learn. And I was telling Samantha, like back when I first started my channel, I was literally putting stuff out there, and people were correcting me, and I was a little sensitive about it in some ways, but at the same time, I was just like, every single time, this made me a better grower. Even if someone said something and they were wrong, they made me go look into it. And when I went and looked into it, I would be like, now I know more. Thankfully, that person criticized me.
Yeah, and it blew up our channel because of all the correspondence.
It was true. Like people. Well, in fact, I learned a little bit. I'm gonna give away one of my secrets, but occasionally in one of my videos, I'll drop something that is purposely incorrect, just so I get people to correct it.
Yep.
because it drives the engagement and boosts me in the algorithm.
Yeah.
But
So a little bit controversial. You know, a comment's a comment, a like's a like, a dis. And any
according to the algorithm, yes.
Any publicity is good publicity. That they say that too. It's like, wow.
Oh yeah, for real.
Oh, I learned to kind of thrive on that, and it kind of is almost entertaining to me now when people get upset about something I say. It's like, I gotcha. I don't know. I'm gonna say more controversial shit, man. I'm just getting started, man.
You want to see?
Dude, I've got 3 bombshells.
Oh, I love it.
I got 3 bombshells. I'm just waiting to drop. I don't know. I don't want. It'll really upset some people. The longest running one now about the Cubensis natalensis thing, and it's like, ooh, I've made a lot of enemies for that one.
I do actually want to get into that here in a little bit. Real quick. Yeah, so it's a great. Wayne Myco said, "Great to see you, Ed. Can you tell us about the local spawn jars? How the local spawn jars have worked out for you?"
Oh yeah, they're basically they're little glass soda bottles. I don't know if we had them in the U.S. The little tiny little Coke bottles. They're a little bit bigger than that. The ones that are made out of glass, and they just put millet in those.
I've seen that. I've actually seen that done in a couple of African grows too.
Oh yeah.
Get what?
He sounded Michigan just right then. Did you hear that? He went, "Oh yeah." That was so Michigan.
I'm Southern. That's Northern. That's the UPA.
Oh well, fair enough.
That's Canada and UPA.
Maybe happy accident.
I'm Southern Michigan. But yeah, something like this is how they start out. I inoculated that already. And then there's and then that's one that's probably whatever.
That looks nice. What's the top? What do you get plugged in there at the top?
Oh, it's a piece of it would be cotton, but it's like polyfill.
Okay. So polyfill. Gotcha.
I don't know. It's like ripped up rags or something like that. It's like what would be polyfill, but they recycle. These are actually soda bottles that they use they mix with whiskey. So if you know somebody who likes drinking whiskey, whiskey and soda here is a big thing. Or it's actually rum, but they call it whiskey.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of inconvenient, because then you got to bash them on something.
Yeah, that was always my problem with jars and stuff. That's why I like the bags so much. But I will say, bags don't get teeny tiny little pinholes in them. I mean, jars don't get teeny tiny little pinholes in them like those small bags and stuff do a lot of times. So
yeah, I'm still torn on. I switched over to those about 2 months. Well, I bought a couple boxes just to try them out, but I'm gonna go back to the bags. But I can get the really cheap PP5 bags. They're like the oven bags here, but I can buy like 100 of them for $3.
Oh gosh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, they're cheap. I can't do unicorn bags here. They're like way too out of my budget, because. Right. Yeah, but I can do these cheap. They sell like hot food and hot curries and stuff, like literally like boiling water and stuff in them. So they handle the heat and the pressure cooker pretty well. But I don't know if you can get them on Amazon. I have a lot of people. I was just talking earlier that some guy wanted me to send them to him, and they're too heavy. So I end up paying $30 to ship them. So it ends up being not very economical.
Gotcha.
So I would love to sell them, but it's just not. It's I end up making like $1 or $2 on the thing, and it's just not worth my time to go buy them.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense. Flavio says, "Can golden oysters have yellowish mycelium during colonization, or do I have contamination?" I've seen yellow and I've seen brown in the mycelium. Have you grown golds much?
Yeah, I have a plate of them there. If you give me 10 seconds, I'll grab it.
Yeah, so I've seen them grow. Like it'll grow yellowish, and then sometimes. Like the center or even like patches will turn brown, and you'll be like, "Oh crap, my plate's dead or contaminated." And then you sector it out, you plate it, and it grows out white mycelium that then turns yellowish and then brown. It's not like pink in my experience, where pink turns like an obvious shade of the mushroom. It's like an off yellow or something. But
chestnut.
This could be a little confusing. It's yellow oyster, but it's on a green dyed plate. So, yeah, I haven't seen any really super yellow. Maybe a light tannish.
Yeah,
this
tannish
is the only
might
time
be.
I've grown it.
Yeah, it's like yellow. I would call it like a yellow brown. It's not a pretty color. But,
yeah, and I noticed some metabolites also on the spawn that smelled kind of bad. Maybe I had to clean it up a little bit because I cloned
brown
it.
black.
There's a pink oyster, but that's on a pink dyed plate too.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say because I have seen pink turn
just
pink.
Random. There it is on a normal PDA plate, so I don't know. It
Yeah.
doesn't have any color.
If I've noticed, if I leave those, they'll turn pink for sure.
A little bit, yeah.
So I said, "Oh man, same here." My Samantha cooked up the deer heart first for me. It was very good. I love organ meat just in general. Like my parents will always be like, "When do you want to go out and eat? You want to spend time together?" I'm like, "Let's go to Shoney's on Saturday night," because on the bar they always have liver and onions, and I love liver and onions.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say they had deer heart.
No, I wish they had deer heart. That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Falcor wants to know what kind of mushrooms they're growing in Thailand.
Like literally the same exact. Like this black pearl, that's Andrew's strain.
It's my cell line of the black pearl. Gotcha.
Yeah, a cell liner. Yeah,
yeah, whatever.
Cultigen.
Cultigen.
I started using that word.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard some of the cannabis people talking about that early. It's the same with them. Well, it's a cultivar strain. That's been going on for 30 years, probably longer.
Well, it's always weird because it's like, so I love peppers, so I grow peppers. So we grew peppers and saved the seeds from the same one for 7 years. So we and it did have some genetic drift from the original strain. And so people were like, well, that's not Ajvarsky peppers. That's Ajvarsky peppers variant Jefferson City 7 because it was there for 7 years, and you're like, okay, yeah, you're right. Fine.
It also didn't help that I kept choosing the one that was easiest to process. It had the thicker flesh on it and less seeds, oddly enough.
Yeah, you're right.
That's something else I have written down here about how we inadvertently select for certain things. Like I was thinking about like the bags versus monotubs versus logs or whatever. We inadvertently, and we've done this throughout the millennia in agriculture. Like the reason why we have like wheat that doesn't shed its seeds, is because those are the ones you could carry back to your house.
Right.
Wild grasses, they call like seed retention, or they got a fancy name for it, where most grasses, I forgot the word. They basically, their seeds kind of explode and they disperse in the field. But the ones that we cultivated next year were the ones that we were able to get home.
Oh, yeah. And I read that they were even like talking about how wheat and almost all like rice, all these grains that we rely on were at once as outcross dependent as corn is, because corn is incredibly it's very inbreeding depression it's very sensitive to that. But all these other ones we had, you can literally track it in the archaeological record where they had they would get these grasses, they would do really, really well, and then all of a sudden the inbreeding depression would set in and you have famine. But then they just kept planting them until eventually some of them mutated to where they became self-pollinating. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, you see the self-pollinators grow until now wheat is a self-pollinating crop unless we, change it. But like a wild wheat is not self-pollinating at all. It's like what you're talking about where, it into the field.
And they hybridize and they become polyploids. This is what I was talking about last year. In say 10 years, I think maybe we'll just be getting there with mycology. So polyploids are another thing. Like wheat, like bread wheat is actually what's called a hexaploid. It actually has 3 genomes in it. And so it's we could go a lot of places with that. But a lot of these things, you know about hybrid vigor, right? Heterosis. Yeah, so when you actually have 2 different species and they hybridize, if for some reason that progeny is able to move itself on and reproduce, could be asexually, could be sexually, a lot of cool stuff starts happening. And so that's why I was looking into polyploids, because my friend in graduate school, she studied polyploids in this plant genus called Eupatorium, which is it's like kind of ubiquitous throughout the southern United States. And so we would go down in like the Panhandle and all the way up North Carolina. We'd start down, go down to the Panhandle over to Louisiana, and then make our way back up to Tennessee. And we'd be stopping alongside the road and collecting these plants. And she was looking at the number of chromosomes in them. And she was also doing what we would now call STR, short tandem repeats, or ISSRs. And so she was looking at these different populations along, like I-75 or whatever, I-40, whatever. And we were just collecting all these fairly boring looking Eupatorium plants. They got a little flower on them. They're kind of pretty, but after the 1,000th one, you're like, oh, great, we got to stop again for you to go out and pull some plant.
So easy, man. I don't know.
It's only only 1,000.
It's only 1,000, man. Come on, keep going.
So I was driving. So that's how we were supposed to go to Memphis one day, but I was like, you know what? Her name was Poom, and it's like, Poom, if you're out there, hi. She wanted to go from Knoxville to Memphis, and I'm like, you know what? We've been driving for like 4 days already. Like, I don't think I can do that. As much as I want to see Memphis, I'm like, I don't think
It's
so.
funny because you can make it in a straight shot or just a couple of days, but if you're stopping to collect, that's the same thing we had. We had invited one of my best friends to go bioprospecting with us the first year up at the Albright Grove, and he's like, "Yeah, a hike. That sounds amazing." We get there, and like 10 steps in, we stop. We GPS tag, we bag, take the photo. We do all that. We walk another 10 steps. We stop, and he is going, "Oh my God, I came to hike. I don't want to do this." He's like, "This is going to take all day," and we're like, "Yeah, this is going to take all day." Anyways, I feel you. So keep going.
I know that's what like I used to go squirrel hunting, and most of the time I didn't come back with squirrels, but I come back with a big old hen of the woods, big maitake, some honey mushrooms, maybe some I don't know, some other weird like a pluteus, like a deer mushroom or something. I didn't care. That's when I got into it. I was like, you know what? I want to clean squirrels when I get home. Like, let me just grab this maitake, and that's good.
Yeah, that's what I found too. And I can trade mushrooms for meat all I want. So it is better for me to just grow mushrooms and handle those and let somebody else do the butchering.
Yeah. I don't know if I got it in me anymore, man. I raised rabbits a few years ago, and that I don't know if people. We shouldn't talk about that, but it's like pretty let's just say it's hands on.
Yeah.
If you want to produce your own meat, harvest your own meat, it's not.
It's heartbreaking.
Something I'm really that comfortable with anymore. I grew up doing that stuff, but
I grew up doing it. I grew up not. My grandfather was a avid outdoorsman, but not. He was a farmer till about I was like 6 years old or so, and so I didn't really handle any of that stuff, because like maybe when I was 6 or something, but it wasn't until I got older, and I would think I was like 19, 20 years old when I first raised rabbits. I was like, "Oh, I'm going to butcher my own rabbits," and I killed the first one. And dude, I started crying like immediately. Like I was like, "Oh, this is." Eventually, you toughen up a little, right? You build a callus there a little bit. You still care for them, you still love them, but I agree with you. It's a whole thing. So
that is the
and I prefer mushrooms.
Reality, though, of raising your own meat and raising your own food.
Well, it's the reality of meat in general. It's just about whether or not you're offloading it.
And you take good care of them, and you give them a good life, and then you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My rabbits ate better than me some days. I got them like fresh organic vegetables. All until that one last couple 10 seconds or so, they didn't have a clue.
Yeah, it's true.
But yeah, mushrooms are a lot easier to deal with too.
Oh yeah, I eat them all day long. Blah. That echo is killing me.
Echo.
Yeah, if I don't silence or mute myself, then it echoes, and then I get all tongue-tied.
Is it because you're hearing yourself and it's echoing?
Maybe.
Anyway,
how this all works, I don't know why. I've never done what do they call it, monitoring on the back of the microphone. I don't know how all that stuff works yet.
I don't know, man. This stuff is beyond me. My father's taught me some. I mean, he's in a band, so he knows a lot about the sound design and stuff. But yeah. Anyways, we were talking about weeds.
Oh yeah, Justin. I think Justin was just up there. Yeah, he's still working on his sound stuff too. We talk sometimes about.
Oh, Justin.
He's got it figured out now, I think, but it's a little bit of a learning curve.
Me with this.
But yeah, we were talking about the wheat, and you were talking about how you had it written down. Crap, what was the
hexaploid?
The hexaploid. There we go. Yeah, keep going about that.
Oh yeah, so I was trying to do that with mushrooms. Basically, I was trying to make what's called a homokaryon, and so most basidiomycetes, it's a dikaryon where you have two.
Right.
So they call it a heterokaryon, where the nuclei are two. They're two different things. What I was trying to do is basically get a dikaryon that was the same two nuclei, so it would be kind of like inbreeding it to itself, and then I had all kinds of ideas, kind of like with. Back crossing is another thing. I'm just getting my head around these ideas, and it takes so much work. I mean, if you start, like a lot of people are like, I want to breed mushrooms, and it's like, ooh, do you know what you're getting yourself into?
Do you know the unholy terror you are about to unleash upon yourself?
Yeah,
I have never had so
crosses.
many dishes and dishes and dishes.
Yes. Dude, you can't see it, but there's like 50 dishes, and this is just the stuff I need to do like next, not counting the 600 that are out there.
When I'm sitting there working at my lab bench, I have to the left is my you need to do this now or you're going to lose this strain.
Exactly.
And then behind me, I have multiple shelves of breeding projects, bioprospecting stuff to be cleaned up and or slanted. And it's like, oh my gosh, dude,
T0 plates that need to be picked, monos that need to be picked. People are like, I want to get some monos, do a grab and drag, and then next thing you know, we have those first couple crosses. You're like, oh my god, they're like that tribbles. I think you got tribbles as a strain, right? Like that Star Trek episode.
Trouble with
tribbles.
Like
the damn tribbles.
That's exactly why we named it that.
That was my first Hericium breeding project. And it was like that. I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much. And then when they came out perfectly round and furry looking, I was like, okay, it's tribbles. Yeah, that's perfect.
Well, and two, like the first, because sometimes with the breeding, it can be a little crazy. But that first wall that we did, there was quite a bit of contamination, and we decided just to break down the rest of the grow room, fruit this one thing, and then deep clean after. And they performed insanely well. Like there was nothing that could beat that down at all. And that's another namesake, you know.
Oh, the tribbles, yeah. That's convenient, you know. I saw there's some others that these strains pop out all the time, but yeah, it's good to get a good name too, you know. I'm not really good at that. Like I'm not very creative, so
I'm really good at the names, but
I still label mine as like crosses. I'm on like F4 and it's still like, I cross with Toke, and I'm like, I should name that or something. But I don't know. Like dudes are like, I sent my spores out for some people a couple years ago, and they're on like F8 now, and they're like, can you give this a name so I don't have to write all this shit on the plate? And I'm like, I don't know. You name it. I don't know. It's yours. Like, you've worked it to F8. You know, you name it. Like,
you name it at that point. So like,
I don't want anything to do with it.
Friend 3.
That's right. So I have RDTN2, which is my best reishi strain I've ever come across. It is, but it's when it makes antlers, it doesn't make like pretty little lean antlers. It makes these big, fat looking, almost looks like you're inside of a cave. And someone said, "Oh man, that looks like pillars in like the pillars in Mines of Moria or something like that from Lord of the Rings." And I was like, "Dwarven pillars." I'm totally going to rename this strain to Dwarven pillars, like because nobody can remember RDTN2. People are always like, "Hey, that reishi strain, it's like TN something," and I'm like, you know what? Screw it. We're going to give it a name, and it's going to be Dwarven Pillars, and nobody will forget that. But like Yeti's Breath, that's a great strain. It's one of the best oyster strains I've bred. But like, it did not start selling really well until I named it Yeti's Breath. So
yeah, totally. Nobody's going to buy TLY Trust Toke F4. What the hell is that? I don't know. But yeah, I got a list in my phone of like potential names, but I like to have them something to do with some reason to like have a name, not just some random thing. Some dudes in the cube community, especially, they're like, "Well, this was like the name of my fictional character in a book I'm gonna write." And, like nobody knows what the hell you're talking about, but some sound cool. It's just got to have a ring to it, you know.
Yeah,
it's got to pop, or as they say,
pop. It's got pop.
Or be sexy, or gain traction, as they say now on social media. What the hell? Yeah, is that a medical condition, gaining traction? I don't know.
Gosh.
Is it like diarrhea or something?
Oh, gosh. I hope not.
Sounds horrible. Oh, man, I can't come see you today. I'm gaining traction.
I don't know. It almost sounds like giving birth, really, but...
Maybe. See, now I'm looking at my plates. I got a little blob there on my PE, man. Somebody found a PE isolate that has a blob, and now I got pins on my PE plate.
Oh, nice.
I didn't even notice that. See, once I start looking at my plates, then my OCD takes over. I'm like, I have to put this back exactly the same place. So you'll see me like looking to the left here. I'm like, is it in the right place? Is it in the right place? Is it in the right place? Like,
Yeah, I get it, man. It works that way for me as well. The oh gosh, my mind just went blank. Well, okay, blank mind's a good chance to
breeding polyploids.
I can't remember now. It's gone. Real quick, everyone, 20% discount code Rifle Creek 20, and that's because we just released a new strain today called the Rifle Creek Oyster. It's on Mossy Creek Mushrooms. It's the first link in the description. So click on it, check that out, save yourself 20%. Rifle Creek 20. Sorry, Ed, for the commercial. I'm gonna have a few of those.
Oh no, that's cool, dude. Literally, I gotta pee a lot now. I'm like, I'll be.
Oh yeah, you go ahead then. I'll do a quick commercial while you do it.
But a minute and a half might not be enough. I need 2 minutes.
Take your time, man. I'll be able to talk. I'll go through some questions and stuff as well. But yeah, guys, check out the Rifle Creek Oyster. That thing is amazing. The few people I know that have it love it. In fact,
strain.
let me just pull up a picture of it. And I should be able to share that with you all. But first I've got to find it. Window. There we go. It's going to take me a second just to find it. There we go. And now I got to add it to stage. So that's a weird pin set of it. Samantha, you watch that and tell me if it changes. Did it change?
Yes.
Awesome. So there, look how buttery brown that is. That's such a pretty one. I sent that to Jacob Wolves in Mongolia, and he's like, "This is my new favorite oyster." So check that out. In fact, he's got some, probably even prettier pictures. Oh, what?
Shiitake.
Why did that go to the shiitake next? Give me a second, guys. Anyways, the Rifle Creek. Check it out. I'll have more pictures. I'll have some video for it. It's going in the grow room in a week or two. But I'll have that as well. We got liquid culture of it ready to ship. So order it up. Save yourself 20%. That's 20% off site-wide. It's not just for that. It's site-wide. It's everything except the mentorships. Normally, I do allow the 20% on the mentorships, but I'm not going to right now because 50% off mentorships until January 31st. So until tomorrow. We've been advertising this. Come do our week-long course. If you want to, we can try to fit it online for you guys, but I do prefer if people come down here to do it and spend the week with us doing hands-on. It's so much easier to do it and learn it when it's hands-on. 50% is going to save you $1,000. We've got inroads with people that have the amazing Airbnbs, and then we have plenty of camping. The entire month of February is already booked up. October, I think, has a couple weeks left. But other than that, we still have a few months open. So feel free to send us an email message. I will be monitoring the email because I know that the deadline on that is coming soon. And I want to make sure that all of you guys have the opportunity to take advantage of that. So, yeah, speak to the microphone.
And something else that I'd like to point out to you is if you're wanting to spend money on a culture library using our strains, that's something that's included in the mentorship.
We do absolutely send you home with a few cultures.
With a bunch of, you get to choose out of our library what do you want to take with you.
Including the things that are off menu.
Yeah.
Yeah. So get you some. Oh, I was about to bring Ed back, but it looks like he disappeared again. So I got to keep talking. Oh, no, he's back. He's back. Okay. All right, sorry about that.
OCD was taking over. I had to get rid of those.
You're like, cultures. Oh, he's still talking. Let me go do this.
I had to get rid of those cultures. Because, dude, I'll be sitting here. I see my crosses. I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, I know what I'm. Get excited. Like I get excited when I look at my cultures. There's just so much to do.
They're my babies, man.
Good. Yeah.
They're absolutely my baby. Like I actually tell Smith, like she'll laugh at me because I'll sit there and I'll pet the bags. And I'll be like, oh, it's like I'm an ant queen, and these are my little eggs, man. You may not know, I was actually going in to study ants. That's what I was going to college for.
Yeah, I heard you talking about. I've watched pretty much everything you've ever done and said.
Goodness gracious, what a compliment, Ed. I can't believe you watched that much of my face.
Oh yeah, well a lot of times when I'm doing like FFU work and stuff, I'll just put it on and I have the headphones on, or I'm constantly. I watch a lot of the plant tissue culture stuff too. I would suggest like people and a lot of the cannabis stuff. If you're getting into breeding, the cannabis people. I mean, there's some good channels that the dudes really go. Like Mr. Grow It, he's got a lot of people on. He's got some average guys, but then every once in a while he'll have an exceptionally like smart, like bright person who really knows what they're talking about.
There's a I'm trying to find him real quick so I can say it, but not Plant Cell Tech.
I know who you mean. Yeah, he's a Spanish guy.
Yeah,
I don't know where he's
just
from.
sent a thing to him, asking him if he wanted to be on here at some point. Great Lakes Tissue Culture. So he's from from the Great Lakes area.
That's a different one. Oh.
Yeah.
There's another guy who's also Spanish.
Send us some names, Ed, if you got any.
Yeah, I was going to say, at the end, I'm definitely
Yeah.
going to ask you for a couple of names of people that you would suggest being on the show, because I definitely am always happy to. I might have to start broadcasting twice a week or something, because I've got people wanting to do the like consultation, the farm tour videos, and I've got people wanting to do the guest interviews, and so I'm thinking, well, the only way I'm going to be able to do that really is to, do 2 a week or something like that. So,
yeah. The lives
I
are
like
easier,
the tag
right?
it kind of thing.
What'd you say, Ed?
Well, the lives are easier because you don't have to edit them and stuff, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah. Plus, I can feed that to the AI, and then it cuts it into shorts for me, and that's how I do the. That's how I do all my shorts on Instagram and YouTube and stuff.
Do it, Ed.
I was gonna do that. Oh
It's,
yeah, there's
the one I like is Opus Clip. That's the one I use a lot.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've got
write that down.
hundreds of hours, and now I need to.
What's cool is you can feed all of your old stuff to it, and then just make shorts from even your old stuff. So, and it's crazy because it'll break it down, and then it'll rate it for its like virality and stuff.
And it's
like
OPUS.
Yeah.
Opus Clip.
Opus Clip's cool. Yeah, that's
It's
cool, 'cause
awesome.
that's exactly what I wanted to do. Some people aren't up for like a 6-hour podcast, you know.
It's true. Well, so I will say that my shorts routinely get as many, if not way more views than my live streams. So, and what's cool is you can tell it to go, like you buy your crunch time or whatever, and then you can say, okay, I want you to crunch this, and I want 10 or 30 second or 30 to 1 minute, 30 second to 1 minute videos, and then I want 5 to 10 minute videos. And so that way you can even upload those as videos on your channel, kind of thing. So it's a pretty neat little tool.
Keep your shorts active.
Yep.
Yeah, it's funny, you know. I've even I hate to say it, but I go back and I watch my own like lives, because a lot of times the questions people ask, they provoke me to think a lot.
Yeah.
I'm just like somebody, like you were saying earlier, somebody asks a question and I can answer it, but then I'm like, there's like 3 other questions going on in my head, and
It sparks something else on top of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody else thinks about it in a slightly different way, you know. That's why I watch a lot of the gourmet stuff too, you know, you guys.
Well, that's actually, I started.
Oh, likewise.
I had very little interest in any of the actives. My story is kind of weird for the generation of, mushroomer that I am, in that I got into it from the gourmets whenever everyone else I knew of, 10, 12 years ago that was getting into it, got into it through the actives. And then they're like, oh, mushrooms are cool. I'm going to study gourmets. And I was just like, oh, mushrooms are cool. And in part, it's because I went to college and my plate got infected by mold, and I was introduced to the 6 ways mushrooms can help save the world at just the right time, that kind of stuff. But in fact, it was like 2 or 3 years in before, I was having like cluster headaches really bad multiple times a day. And so Samantha was like, why don't you try this? So I tried it, and then 1 dose, and then for 3 years, not a single cluster headache. And then, I'd taken another dose at that point, but a single dose got rid of them overnight. And so I was just like, oh crap, that's crazy. That was a single case use that I saw, but it got me in a really strange direction. But I watch as much of the active stuff as I can, because they're the ones, you in part, proving this whole like idea that I had back, whenever I was next to the tomato farmer at the market, that you've heard this story before, where I was just like, he's got 1 species and like 50 varieties that look like separate species. And here I am growing 5 species to get 5 different things.
Yeah, it's funny because I've had the same thoughts, like with peppers and also tomatoes. And I remember when, my mom used to save seeds, and I would always think about, like Samantha was just saying, how you pick the big one, you get the seeds from the big one, and then you eat that one, and then you grow that next year. So you're kind of just accidentally selecting for certain characteristics or phenotypes or whatever you want to call them.
That's what you were talking about, is when we're doing bags, tubs, shoe boxes, etc., that we were selecting for other stuff. Do you still have more to go on that? Because I actually
a lot.
A lot. Okay, so expand a little.
briefly, I was thinking about what happens. What I've noticed when I get a spore print or a swab and I grow it the first time, the performance, even it's multi-spore. Normally I do my T0 plates and I make spawn, and so I'm looking for a specific phenotype, and then I'll often get spores from that and grow it again. So even if it's say a standard cultigen, like I don't like a Riptide or whatever. I don't know if you're familiar. I say Jack Frost. You know Jack Frost, right?
I'd actually know Riptide better than I know Jack Frost.
Oh, okay. Let's say Riptide then. So if it's a Riptide and then you grow it again, what I've noticed is I got a swab of Riptide and I grew it the first time. I streaked it because it was spores, and so I made multi-spore spawn. And then you think like, well, it's stable or whatever, but we all know now these things aren't really stable. And so maybe it might be on F8, F9, F10, whatever magic number that people have come up with in the past for generally other organisms, like turkeys or ducks or whatever, or fish. But when we're talking about fungi, you can have something that's on F8, F9, and it's still, if you go back to spore, it really, really can show, a lot of different phenotypes or expressions. And you pick the one that looks right or the best one or whatever you think. But I think I really wonder about what they're now calling like epigenetics.
Yep.
Like, so say you've got a multi-spore plate and you throw it in your spawn and then you grow that thing. Either you can directly select by, cloning something and you can just continue to grow that, or you can get the spores from that clone and then you can restart those spores. What I'm fascinated is usually by the time you do that, so it would be like the new F2 or F3 or whatever, even if it was a stable cultigen, you don't know what F number it's on. Like what F number is GT and B plus on? Like 1,000, 2,000, 10,000?
Good Lord, who would know at this point?
No, who knows? So whatever your new F2 or F3 or whatever, usually by the second or third time you go back to spores, it really starts producing really well. And I don't know why this is. Is it adapting to your conditions? Like, I know we're selecting, so say I grow in shoe boxes. Like, so I'm going to see the fruit that looks good to me and the pheno that I want in those shoe boxes. So I know I'm selecting that way. But is there something else happening genetically that is causing these things to change? You've probably seen the same thing with agar plates. You've got a monoculture that you've subcultured over and over and over again, and then you put it on new media and it starts sectoring. You're like, why is it sectoring? I don't know. Pleurotus, I guess, probably do this too, but cubes are notorious for this. You put something that you've subcultured for like 5 years, and all of a sudden you put it on a plate and it starts sectoring.
Right.
And you're like, why is it doing that? Did my scalpel too hot? Did I, cut it the wrong? I don't know. What did I do? Why is it sectoring? And then it goes Tobin-Tos. Yeah, like, what did I do? What's happening? Is it a temperature thing? Is the media not homogeneous? Did I pour the plates wrong? And I think it's just something happening. They're sort of adapting or acclimating to our particular environments. So one of the things I actually wrote down here, is it, same thing with substrate and stuff, you get that enzyme blindness or whatever.
Yeah.
So I generally encourage people to get, and I'm sure you do too. I don't know. This is what I was going to ask you is how many times in the gourmet world do people go back to spores? Because in the cube world and exotics, we have to, right? Because
all the time. Yeah. It's the only way to really transfer
cultures.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's technically illegal to sell live cultures, and so how do you got to send spores, right, to people?
Yeah.
And so we're forced to learn agar, not quite now, but let's say 2 years ago, you had to learn how to do agar and you had to learn how to do spores because you couldn't send somebody LC. And I know the gourmet people have been doing LC for probably at least 10 years, right?
So I think Mycelium Emporium was doing it some.
Yeah.
But really, it was what I found was that the people who would adopt it were people coming out of the cubensis world because they were used to working with spore syringes. And a lot of the people who started in the gourmet world were really resistant to liquid culture. I think Lenny at Mycelium Emporium was one of the few, was like the only person really that had any sort of presence selling liquid culture much. And then I made the video about it where I was like, it's okay, but not really. And then I made the video where I said I was wrong.
I remember that.
Yeah, that video blew up. And when that video blew up and I was selling liquid culture, all of a sudden you see it take off. And then there's like more and more and more. And I'm not saying that there was nobody doing it before other than Lenny, but there were very, very, very few, or at least they didn't have very much presence. And so it really took off later. I felt like the cubensis guys, really because of the spore syringes, that was just infrastructure they were used to. Whereas I feel like a lot of people were like, "Oh, needles! I don't want to mess with needles," you know.
Yeah.
So.
Oh gosh, I did some designs and marketing and things like that for liquid culture.
Yeah.
And someone made this comment that I was promoting drug culture, and
Dune.
I could have
yeah.
strangled somebody.
What's up,
Oh,
Dune?
yeah,
Glad to see you on. Sorry,
Some
this is
gourmet
one of my
people.
oldest viewers.
The spice must flow.
Yeah, I
Some
love
of the
Dune.
gourmet people are getting kicked off like IG and stuff now. They're nothing to do with the illegal stuff. They're
Yeah.
like totally just
It's-
any kind of mushroom person.
It's
is getting
happening a
kicked off.
lot. So like Eric Myers had a channel that was bigger than mine. It was like
huge.
65,000, and it got slapped down. Now, he was like, "Oh, they're after mushroom growers," and I was like, "Well, no, not really." If you like, because he showed his like the response they sent, and it was because he was putting links in the comments.
Yeah, that's
So, and like YouTube hates that. If any link that unless it's a YouTube link, they hate it. If it takes them off site, and where he had done it multiple times, it wasn't like, "Oh, you've been doing this, here's a strike." It was like, "Oh, you did it here, strike. You did it here, strike. Oh, you did it here, strike." So he got 3 strikes and his channel killed with no appeal.
Just
But
sad.
then, and now there are other people I've seen who are like, "Okay, well they were obviously breaking the rules. They went down." But you're right that it seems like now there's like purveyors who are just like getting slapped down and they're not even breaking the rules. So like it's like where, why? I don't know.
And
That's why I'm
it's
so cautious.
inconsistent.
That's why I'm so cautious. So
That's why that was part of the reason I didn't want to monetize too. I thought maybe it would. Well, I wouldn't make any money anyway, but I didn't think it would. I thought it maybe keep me off the radar or something. But I don't think it matters now. I'm just waiting one day. I'm gonna go to open my YouTube and it'll all be gone. It's almost inevitable. So
yeah, probably. If I were you, and I am going to do this myself, so it's advice I'm giving myself as well. But I'm going to do a Rumble channel. That's why I'm building an audience on X. Even though it's a little bit slow building on X because I don't pay it as much attention as I should. You know, I'm doing an Instagram audience, that kind of stuff, and so I hate social media, but I've got to diversify because you know if they slap down my YouTube, my income's pretty well gone. So.
Yeah, no,
I can't have
like
that.
TikTok.
Oh yeah, with a lot of people that have the TikTok. So
yeah, I've gotten I've been collecting people's emails, but I should ask more often too because
that's something that we just
go
started as
away.
well. Yeah, we just
Could
started
just
that
go
as well
away.
because it's like at least then I'll be able to do an email broadcast. And I am going to be writing a newsletter. I've actually started on it. So it's like at least I'll be able to give away some free info that way, and people will get something out of it. But it'll also be a way for me to be like, "Hey, I also released this strain. Buy something. My kids need to eat today."
Yeah, I don't really make much money selling swabs or anything. I just enjoy doing it. Like I basically pay for my materials and maybe the electric bill, but
Yeah.
Oh.
yeah, I don't have kids and stuff like
Right.
that. Like I'm
That
basically
certainly makes it a lot. Like Samantha and I was looking at it. If we didn't have kids, how cheap our life would be. And don't get me wrong, they're absolutely worth it. They're absolutely worth it. They're amazing, amazing little creatures. But I love them. And they are the best thing that's I've ever done. But the going back to the selection bias, I guess we could call it, something that I was reading about, and I saw that you actually linked this book on your section of links on your live streams as well. It's Genetics and Breeding of Edible Mushrooms by Cheng. In that, I was reading their shiitake breeding project, and they were discussing how what they found was that most shiitake farms would actually breed strains, and then this strain does really well in our system, and then they would just continually breed for, this one works in our system, and they might buy something from a competitor and go, how does it do in our system? But it was not a clean, like, this strain will do well in everyone's system. It definitely was like it needs these parameters. So and they were narrowing in on that with every generation. So
Yeah, it's often been a problem, when people sell stuff on whatever Facebook or wherever they used to. You'd see one picture, and it's like the Starry Night ape, right? Snape, and people are like, "I want that phenotype," and they grow it, and then it doesn't look like the picture, and people get really excited, and they're like, "Well, this vendor screwed me over," and
right.
blah blah blah. And then it's like, well, you don't. Then you got to explain phenotypic plasticity to them, and then you've got to explain nature versus nurture and environmental conditions. Not to mention the fact like you're not growing, you're contaminating your grow, and then on and on and on.
Yep.
And it's funny how much question and how many questions and how much work can be generated by like sending somebody spore swabs or a print or something like. It's like, wow, I think I do a pretty good job, but sometimes it gets a bit overwhelming. You're like, oh, I don't know if I can answer all these questions.
Yeah.
It does.
And then you go on YouTube, make videos, put them on YouTube. And now I'm just like, go look up tent. Like the tent, go look up diaper. Go onto my YouTube and search for diaper.
Diaper tech.
Yes, exactly.
We get kind of
How we get the water crystals.
we get kind of similar comments about like our blues, king blue, and super cold temperatures. It'll be like a deep navy that is just gorgeous, and then it gets hot in the summertime, and it'll be like so blown out. It'll be like a gray white.
And they'll be like, "This isn't a blue oyster," and it's like, "No, it is. It's warmer than what you need." So it's and you're so. Some strains are just have more plasticity to them than others as well, because it's like we have a strain called Rocky Top. It's one of my favorites that I've ever bred. A little slower than the other oysters, but it's a nice fat stemmed oyster. But it's like regular, like 65-degree temps, what I would call like normal temperatures in most grow rooms. You're talking like nice, beautiful blue. It gets warm, it turns brown, and then when it gets like really cold, it comes out like black looking, and it's like just the color difference, but it will also, the structure will actually change a little bit too. The consistency of the stems, like when it gets hot, the stems will actually be smaller, thinner, and longer, versus cold, they'll be shorter, fatter, broader, thicker. So
or pinset change.
Right.
Go ahead.
And they get all stringy and stuff, right? I know when I grew pink oysters the first time, I was like, wow. I was trying to grow them next to my cubes in my Martha tent. I was like, they look like crap, man. But they were at like 80 degrees, and they were all long and stringy. And like, it's like, oh, those don't look right. It was nice that I could grow them, but it was like, let me just go back to growing cubes. They're easier.
Yeah. Somebody asked me if you can grow, like, oh, blah, 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 like, well, if I learn all this stuff, can I grow cubes? They were taking a mentorship, and I was like, if you can grow oysters, you can grow cubes. Like, that's one of the nice things about them, is that they're the easiest mushroom I've found to grow. Maybe not the easiest to master, but definitely the easiest, one of the easier ones I've come across to grow. Question for Andrew: which strain of Hericium has the fastest growth rate in a petri dish? Calling you tomorrow to ask some questions about cultures. Anyways, thought I'd ask why I have you of your strains. I mean, Tribbles is one of my fastest. Tribbles is one of my fastest, with like Mossy's Mane being the absolute slowest Hericium I've ever seen, other than this Hericium that we call the Birch Hericium, which has never been released. It's from Michigan, some tiny little island right off the top of the tip of Michigan. But that one
island.
Do what?
Mackinac Island.
That's it. Yeah. Somebody.
But here's how you know you're not from Michigan, because it's spelled Mackinac, but you say Mackinac.
Well, I was going to say, he said it Mackinac. So okay.
You say it. But it's spelled Mackinac. It's one of those like native word, whatever.
Gotcha. Well, he was saying he's like, dude, the canoeing. His name was Roan, and he was saying the canoeing up there was just absolutely phenomenal. The hunting and stuff like that as well. But yeah, the Tribbles is probably the fastest of my bred strains that I have. I think there's a couple of wild ones, like the Glenmore. I don't know if we've got that one released yet. I don't think we do. And then what's that other wild one? Oh, the Dyson Sphere. But the Dyson Sphere, while it's really, really fast, it needs it's got to be hot. It will not grow in cool temperatures at all.
It was found in the summer, and it was like 101, 102 degrees.
It's like 102 when we found that one. So, yeah. So, or we didn't find it. Eddie found it, but when it was brought to us. I have a question for the panel or anyone. If if I have an all-in-one bag and a multi-spore syringe, do I just inoculate the bag and wait? What temperature should be the bag kept at? I don't know anything really about that. I mean, on the
All-in-one
temperature.
bags have become. Well, what species is he using?
Right, that's what I was going to ask. Is like what? Like I feel like there's enough information there.
Yeah,
Galaxy, give
I'm
us some
assuming
information.
he's probably growing cubes. The temperature for inoculation for cubes. The temperature is not really that important.
That's what I've heard. I've heard anything from
Yeah.
put it in the incubator to put it on a shelf to put it on,
The problem is now some of these people that are in cold areas, the relative humidity is so low. Like up north in Michigan or out in Colorado, there's like cold and the humidity is so low. I see a lot of pictures of people with substrate that just looks dried out, and it's difficult because as you know, the temperature and the relative humidity are all kind of related, and so if you change one, it affects the other, and then it's just a whole bunch of variables, and I think a lot of people in the winter have trouble.
6 degrees here the other day, and my humidifier discs, had run so much they'd gotten calcified. So I just swapped out my humidifier head, and all of a sudden it put out just the fogged the entire room. But when it did, my temperature dropped even further, and I was like, "Oh my god!" Like it was. I mean, obviously not to 6 degrees because my grow room was above freezing. For it to fog, but oh my gosh, man, it was like it dropped like 8 degrees, I think, as soon as the fog started happening.
Oh, that's wild, because says that when the fog would probably condense on stuff, it would.
That's my guess is
that
when it
out of the air.
So the fog comes out, and what you see, the fog droplets or whatever are not what's raising the relative humidity. It's when they evaporate into the air, and it's just that the fog evaporates really easily. And so, I guess when it evaporated, it cooled. Because we used to do that. They taught us that in the Marines. Like, we're going over to a desert region. When your humidity's low, you take a water bottle, put it in a sock, wet the sock, and hang it up. And then when the sock dried, you could go grab the bottle, and the water bottle would be cold. Yeah. So you're like, oh, you want cold water? Just hang it up, that kind of thing. So, but the evaporation cooled it.
Kangaroos do that too, where they'll lick themselves and cool themselves down through the evaporation on their fur.
I mean, I guess that's technically how air conditioners work, but we never think, it's like evaporation, and then it cools it, and then move the heat somewhere else, and then it's that whole Carnot cycle or something like that.
Yeah,
one of those things I didn't ever remember in engineering and never quite learned.
One of those things I was supposed to know.
It's horrible. All the hours I spent. What is kind of funny is now that I have like an engineering degree and a PhD, now I spend all my time growing semi-legal mushrooms and talking about it on the internet.
Right.
I'm sure Ron would be really fucking proud of me. Probably like, whoa, I thought this fucker was gonna publish papers and like put my name on him. Now he's talking about goddamn magic mushrooms on the internet. You goddamn.
Yeah, it's why I avoided the academic path. Let's just say, in part.
Well, I love it. The people who are trying to get, they're like really super. They wanna talk about it, but they can't because it's kind of like career suicide even now.
Right. Yeah, I would say so. Academia, from what I understand, is pretty slow to adapt. You got to wait till people age out. That's actually what my professor was telling me. Like when I was like, "Oh yeah, I want to do mycology. I want to study ants," and she was like, "You're either going to work for pesticide companies or you're going to wait for 40 years until someone dies so you can move up in position." And she's like, "And then right before you die, you might get the position you want." So
yeah, that's kind of funny. That's why I don't work for the university anymore. I was like tenured, and there was some political. Basically, they needed to get rid of me. So academia is a nasty place too.
I've heard a lot about that. Yeah, I've got friends in it. Then they're just talking about like the bureaucracy, the backbiting, and it's like because I said something like, I hate the politics, right? I hate the politics of the corporate world, and they're like, so you're going to go back to school? You think that there's no politics in the academia? And I was like, and they're like, man, don't.
Oh, it's rough, dude. They'll steal your ideas. People are worried about scooping some idea like in the actives world or something. Now, academia will do that too. You got to be careful. You're having lunch with one of your colleagues or whatever, and then 2 months later you see them publishing a paper on what y'all talked about. It's like,
It does
wow,
happen in
really?
there's another YouTuber who I shared. We had a phone call, and I was like, well, I don't really tell a lot of people this, but this. And a week later, they had a video out on it, and I was like, "Are you kidding?" I like literally told you I don't share this. That said, it's not like the idea that I had was the best idea in the world. In fact, what I found is normally with mushrooms, any idea I've had, 15 other people have had it. Yeah, 15. It's not a unique
Exactly.
idea. Yeah, it's really about how much work I'm doing. Am I doing the work or am I not? And if I'm doing the work, I'm making progress when the other 14, 15 people aren't. But then they'll go, "You stole my idea," whenever,
Yes,
and it's like, yeah.
Oh, dude, you just reminded me like 3 years ago when maybe 2 years ago, I had a YouTube channel for my students before. I didn't do anything about mushrooms with it. But about 2 or 3 years ago, I discussed, I think it was on Discord, maybe an idea with this guy about how we label F numbers and how we label our plates. And I had talked and posted about it on Facebook for like 6 months talking about this idea. But because I had a discussion with this guy and I made a video about it the next day, he was like, "Oh, you stole my idea." And he went on like 3 or 4 of his podcast episodes, like talking shit about me. I'm like, dude, this is an idea. If you look at the shroomery in 1986 or
Right.
whatever, this is not a new idea. But because I had talked about it with him, he was like, "You stole my idea."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "No, dude, this is from the shroomery." And I had to go and like show him like where, like he thought it was his idea or something. I'm just like,
That's why
nobody has
couldn't get
novel
mad at
ideas.
that YouTuber for doing it, because it wasn't my idea. It was just something I was like, I don't spread this around. And he's like, then I was like, "Oh, you're just gonna spread it around," even when I said I didn't. But
Oh, I can
but I
understand
feel like-
both sides of it
Yeah.
because
well, and it's it's like I said, like we were talking about, the ideas are pretty common. So it's like you can't get mad at him because maybe he knew about it beforehand or whatever, but he just he didn't mention it, kind of thing. So it's like I just learned that if there is something I want to play close to my chest, you don't tell anybody about it. And if you like, and people will get mad at me. People are like I built an automatic syringe puller, and I'm like, well, I actually can't really talk much about this because of some of the dynamics. But people are like, "You got to tell me," and when I won't tell them, they're like, I thought you were
You're
open source.
gatekeeper.
Yeah, gatekeeper. And I'm like, look, man,
Selfish pig.
yeah. I'm like, look, I give away so much for free. Can't I keep this one thing for myself for a year or two?
Dude, then you'll have other people, their friends or whatever, emailing you or sending you messages trying to like pick apart, like, "Oh, if he
Yep.
tells me this little piece and that little piece, then we can
Oh yeah,
we can merge it
Yeah.
together, amalgamate it," and like, oh,
big
Yeah,
time.
it's
I've definitely got that too. Yeah.
On
Yes.
Andrew's phone is just like ping, ping, ping. Like it's just constant.
It's true. Like we had a new employee today start with us, and he was like, I told him, I was like, you're gonna work with Samantha because my phone's gonna go crazy constantly. And so every time I was talking to him today, my phone was like ping or rings or whatever. And I'm so like, he's talking constantly, like he's trying to talk to me, and I'm like, during 9 to 5, this rules my life. Like, I'm not.
so you're like a 13-year-old girl.
That's exactly right. I am. All the boys are calling me.
No, the phone rule in your life.
Right.
Dude, they like everybody now, especially the girls. There's just like the phone is like attached to them.
Really, no kidding. Like I'm kind of dealing with that with my daughter.
No, dude, I go to the urinals in the bathroom and I'm like standing next to a dude and they're like holding their phone while their their parts in their other hand.
Gross.
Yeah.
It's like do, and it's like, yeah, that's why it's the dirtiest thing you
That's
ever
why it's the
touch,
dirtiest.
and that's why I never touch anyone else's phone.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's like, no, I don't want you touching my phone. You don't touch my phone. Like, let's just not touch each other's phone. And especially when I see YouTube videos and these dudes are doing culture work with gloves on, and they check their phone and then they immediately go back to doing culture work. I'm like, don't do that.
No, your phone is so filthy. Justin Norris, question. I just had a Mon mating not work out, so I did it again. This time I did a Daimon mating, and it went beautiful. Could it be because of compatibility issues between the alleles? That'd be my guess.
Could, yeah, definitely.
You change when you bring it to a Daimon pairing, it changes the alleles, because even if you had the same two Mon-Mons, but then you have the Daimon, there's another allele in there, right? So, or another set.
Well, yeah, like you said, it depends where you got the dikaryon for the daimon, though.
Right.
Is that from? But even if it, so yeah, it would likely be from. Even if it were the same two parents, then they would likely have different mating alleles in that dikaryon from the two individual monos.
Yeah, they were talking about that with the shiitakes really strongly. That in that book, the amount of alleles that just would not line up. They had a lot of Mon-Mons that failed. I can't remember how many. I can't remember what the difference was, but it was a lot But then they did the outcrossing between the strains, brought them back and retried like different Mon pairings from those, and the ones that. Can you still hear me?
It's still on here.
It's still on. Okay, my screen just went black for some reason. Okay, there I am again. That's weird. But they had
the government, man. We're talking about cubes, right. Dude. They're listening.
They don't want us to know. But when they brought those back, all of a sudden they paired up just fine, and they think that part of it was certain alleles carried what they were called an accumulation of lethals. Are the lethals mutations, lethal mutations, or are they? I'm not familiar with that phenomenon really. I haven't read a lot of stuff about the shiitake growing. I have that book and I have read parts of it, but it's a pretty big book. It's it's got a lot, and it's very dry. It's very, very, very dry. I've actually found the best thing was I uploaded it to ChatGPT, and now I talk to ChatGPT a lot about it.
I tried feeding it through the Notebook LM thing, and it couldn't. It was too big, the file I had, and it made like a little 11-minute synopsis of the whole book or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, it didn't. It was very vague.
John, yes, I've grown mushrooms I've grown oysters on hair before, and it did work. It broke down the hair, and I didn't eat the oysters after that. I was a little grossed out.
Oh yeah, there's some interesting history about they used to take newborn baby hair and grow some. They used to, how they have, what do they call them, like bait traps? They would bait certain keratinophilous fungi that grow on hair. There was some really, really obscure like ascomycetes that will only grow on hair, but they'll only grow on like newborn blonde baby hair. Weird stuff like that.
Wow.
God, mushrooms are weird.
Kind of like cordyceps, they're very host specific. They'll only grow. I mean, some are kind of like kind of generic. What is it, like multitaskers or whatever? Mm-hmm. But like some species of cordyceps will only grow on like one species or one genus of bugs.
Gotcha.
There's hundreds of species of cordyceps, like hundreds, if not thousands, of species of cordyceps.
Just because there are so many that specialize to one species of insect. I was actually reading about that, and the reason, we do have that somewhat with mammals, but not anywhere near to the degree. But like fish have a problem with fungus, reptiles have a problem with fungus, insects or spiders, any of the oh my gosh,
arachnids.
Well, the arachnids and all the I'm trying to remember the entire. Whatever, the hard-shelled stuff, all of that, apparently a lot of it has to do with the fact that mammals have what's called the thermal barrier. And so fungus can't, we can run a fever, and fungus does not like heat, apparently. Mm-hmm. So they actually talked about the proliferation of, what was it, the K extinction or whatever, when the dinosaurs went down?
KT, I saw something about that too.
Yeah, they were talking about how arthropods, thank you, Aardvark, I don't know why I couldn't remember that word, but they were talking about how when that happened, there was such a proliferation of fungal spores were at a much higher level in the fossil record at that time, and they think that that's in part why mammals came to rise, was that we were better prepared by being warm-blooded to actually handle that. So
that's what I heard too.
It's kind of cool.
That's part of the reason why we get fevers and stuff to try to kill off some of that stuff.
And then it's okay, if you think about life on other planets, are they going to have developed the warm-bloodedness? Is anything ever going to be like us because it didn't go through the same series of disasters we went through? It spins me off in a completely random ass direction.
I love how you just assume there was life on other planets too.
I'd absolutely assume it. I assume
do
that
too.
yeah,
But
the
sometimes
universe is
people
full.
will say they'll start talking about UFOs, and they're like, do you believe? Do you believe? I'm like, hell yes, of course,
Of course I
of
do.
course. There's other
I grow
things out
mushrooms for a
there.
living. What do you think of
I
me?
know.
No, I'm just
How much? Yeah, and I've eaten a lot of mushrooms. What do you think? I've talked to the fucking aliens.
I've talked to the aliens. Let's see. Justin North says, I'm growing a high CO2 hericium and I want to collect spores without inducing FAE. I did it with a temp differential on the last one, but can't get this one to kick in the spore production. That's actually really hard, I have found, like without fresh air. What I would do is grow it out a ways and then introduce air. I mean, that's the only way I can imagine because that's literally a response. They don't want to release spores until they hit an oxygen-rich atmosphere. So I really think that if you're trying to breed a high CO2 hericium, you throw out a bunch of strains, you see which ones perform better, and then introduce oxygen to collect the spores, do it again, and eventually you might get something like that might produce spores in CO2. I don't know. I assume that you're going to be able to overcome that barrier at some point.
What I would do is put it in its own chamber, and then if you can, a lot of these systems are on your phone and you can just increase gradually or decrease, and I would increase it to the point that you just get to that Goldilocks zone of being able to have it spore and then collect from there, from like the sidewalls of the growing chamber. That's what I would do.
John said someone farted earlier that Micah says it. I don't think anybody's farted here. Maybe you heard my chair. I would tell you if I did, and I would not be ashamed. Got to get us on some firewood. Maybe y'all still be on after this.
Burped.
We might. I definitely burped earlier. Tried to hold it under my breath. Any pointers for growing BS26? It likes the cool, but it likes high humidity. I would just treat it like any good solid oyster.
Likes cold stratification.
We didn't know this. Oh, the 13-year-old girl side of me. Yep, I'm definitely a 13-year-old girl. How do you feel about another minute and a half break?
Yeah, I'm down. Dude, anytime. I'm.
All right, we'll be right back, guys.
Anytime.
Imagine a world where the most unique, rare, and powerful mushroom strains are preserved, studied, and shared with growers like you. That's exactly what we're building with the Mycologium, a living archive of fungal biodiversity, sourced from the wild, expanded in the lab, and made available for researchers, growers, and curious minds alike. But here's the best part. You can be a part of it. If you're a bioprospector, a forager, or just someone who loves finding cool mushrooms in the wild, you can send in your samples. If you send me in a wild mushroom and I can successfully clone it, I'll send you back a cleaned up culture of it. If you send me a culture that you've already cleaned up yourself, I'll send you one for our library, ready to grow, experiment with, or add to your collection. That's right. Culture for culture. You help expand the library, and you get something amazing in return. The goal? To preserve fungal diversity, to give people access to new genetics, and maybe, just maybe, to discover something truly groundbreaking. So if you've got an interesting mushroom, a rare find, or a strain that deserves a place in the archives, send it in. Let's build something incredible together. The Mycologium, preserving fungal biodiversity, one culture at a time. Want to learn more? Hit us up, shoot us a message, and let's keep spawning culture, y'all. All right, guys. Well, we're waiting on Ed and Samantha to get back. Oh, Ed is back. Okay. Samantha can come in with us. What's going on?
I love that idea of the mycologium, man. That is, I kind of wanted to do that for some of the exotics and stuff, but it's just the record keeping and the what do they call it, provenance and things like that. Mm-hmm. It's such a pain in the butt, man.
I did not realize the mess I was getting myself into when I started. And here's the thing: I hadn't even started advertising it, and people were hearing about it, and all of a sudden, cultures just started coming in, and I was like, I've got to get my shit together. So Samantha, who is an amazing organizer, I'm horribly disjointed. I basically come through somewhere like a tornado and I make a mess. And then Samantha comes through and she's like, oh, we can organize this into something useful, right? So she's the one, like, she does all the record keeping, and poor thing, I overwhelm her constantly with that stuff. Maybe hearing myself a bit. Yeah.
At least it doesn't do that feedback thing, like back in the day. You said,
right? It's actually Mossy Creek Mushrooms. Well, Mossy Creek Mushrooms runs the Mycologium, but they are actually becoming separate entities. So eventually here fairly soon, we're talking to a lawyer and accountant and stuff right now, but we're going to be moving the Mycologium itself to a nonprofit. And then we'll have the Mossy Creek Mushrooms will support the nonprofit somewhat, but it will not be just me. So,
yeah, I remember over at UT, we had about 60,000 little cryo vials full of monokaryons and dicaryons and whatever, and it was just horrible. That was like the most painful part. So you think like, well, I could hire somebody to do this, but that's the problem, right? The
you can't hardly
hire. No, you can't trust somebody you hire.
It's actually what. So I'm hiring employees right now to do, like, I'm simplifying all my systems and automating them as much as possible, and then I'm bringing employees in and training them step at a time. And it's basically like, you're here to shake bags, you're here to inoculate in the production lab. No one but Samantha and I go into the culture lab, and it'll probably be that way for a while. I made the mistake. I've had 2 different employees that I've allowed in the culture lab, and the first one, I literally found like notes in the in the culture lab notebook. It was like, Andrew told me to do this, but I decided to do this because I know more than Andrew, basically. And I was like, all right, you're gone. And I did notice that. Like I literally told them, I said, your job is to back up cultures. So you come in, and I want you to prioritize bioprospective strains. And then I want you, the next priority is bred strains. And then the last priority is anything commercial, but like anything commercial I can buy again. So don't worry about that. She literally backed up every commercial strain and would not do the others. And she was basically like, well, these other ones, they're not trialed, but commercial strains are trialed. So we know we want them. And I'm like, I can pay $15. I can't get that one from Mongolia back, or whatever. We didn't actually have the Mongolian one back then. I was just using that as an example, but you have to be careful letting people into your inner sanctum.
Yeah, this is why I started like selling swabs, not because I wanted to make money necessarily, because I'm like, I did a fair amount of work to make these crosses, and if I lose them, there's people out there now who have crosses of mine that I lost. You lose the monokaryon or whatever, and it's just you lose a plate, whatever happens. I had a mite infestation for a couple months, and like the only thing that exists of all that hard work is like some cross that I sent out or sold to somebody.
I have been long standing on the best way to preserve a strain is to sell a strain, right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe give it away could also be kept, but it is to get it out there. Like, holding on to it is just not, it's not a good way to save anything. That's how I've lost strains, is going, oh, it's too good for me to sell. Maybe I want to lease this in the future. And then, then I go and the slants won't revive. But like I literally almost lost Super Scallop. And I went to one of my first people I ever did a consult for, was like, do you have this strain? And they're like, yes, we keep it in our culture bank. I was like, can I get a copy? Because dummy me lost it. So I lost
like,
it.
Yeah, for $1,000.
Right. Yeah. So I actually routinely now too, because I noticed some differences. Like somebody was growing my mother of pearl strain, and then someone else was growing my mother of pearl strain. And I was like, they both look slightly different than mine. So we brought them back. I actually repurchased them. And apparently they had not been keeping them in slants. They'd just been liquid culture to liquid culture to liquid culture.
Oh,
and when I grew them out, one of them, my mother of pearl, normally starts off really electric blue and then goes to a white, right? And it's kind of like a blue white, like it's like a really white color with like a pearlescent kind of shine to it. And one farm sent it back to me, and it started off white, never had blue in it to begin with. And I was like, but it grew exactly, the morphology was all the same. And then on the other side, this other farm sent it to me, it never lost the blue. Like, and I was like, that is
Epigenetics, man.
Epigenetics.
Epigenetics.
Adam Bolton joined our Discord. He was one of the first people ever, like 10 people to join, and he's out of mushrooms now. Because they were starting their mushroom farm. His wife was just about to quit, and so was he. And then they found out she was pregnant, and they're like, "Oh, we need insurance, so we're going to keep our job." But he got into it, started reading about mushroom genetics, and got back to me because this was when I was first starting, really getting into the learning about it in a technical aspect. And he was like, "Are you ready for some fucked up stuff?" And I was like, "Sure, what?" And he was like, mushrooms are like the most plastic thing ever. He's like, their genetics are actually relatively simple, except the epigenetics, which makes the genetics completely complicated. He's like, it's just so. He's like, mushrooms rely on epigenetics like nothing else in this world relies on epigenetics. So it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Like I said, they can be as simple and easy to grow as you want to make them, or it can open up. I mean, every time I do a live, I think of like 3 new PhDs somebody needs to do. It's like somebody literally needs to take this and make it a 4-year project that's all they do. Like, and I mean, not most people are up for that kind of stuff. I already got my PhD. I'm never gonna do another one.
You could be a mentor though, and help somebody else. Like that would be really cool.
With all that extra time he's got.
Oh yeah, I'd be happy to do that. But
I actually was telling somebody I was thinking about going back to school. He's a professor, and he's like, "Don't." I was like, "Why?" And he's like, "You're working on like 15 PhD level stuff right now. Like, he's like, you go to school, you're gonna have to, stop doing what you're doing to do it." So, and I was like, "Well, that, and I'm almost 40, so like,
yeah." I was gonna go back for business or psychology.
Psychology.
One of those other degrees you're not going to use, like the engineering.
Yeah, that's the problem. I was like, you know what? I'm going to have to pay for this. And like, I don't know if I want to spend the next 3 to 4 years of my life. And, there's enough YouTube videos on psychology. Like, I already know what bipolar and like, PTSD and all these things are. Like,
well, that's the great thing, right? Like, the internet has actually opened that up to where if you are even slightly an autodidact, a self-teacher, then you can learn anything you want to learn.
Well, I actually went for education, early childhood education. I tried to do a triple major insanely. And then I went for counseling. That's actually where I found that article for Andrew, was in a counseling magazine. Mm-hmm. I really wanted to do early childhood education and counseling through art therapy. And I just thought that was, and the child psychology and all of that was just such a fascinating thing to me, and very near and dear to my heart as well. But yeah, it's a cool subject.
Well, you could specialize on counseling cube growers, and you could have you could just be a counselor for people getting into the exotic and mushroom growing industry. What kind of psychosis they have before and after they start doing all of this stuff? Does it exacerbate pre-existing conditions, or what conditions they had before? Like, when you decide to start a mushroom farm, like what? Like, are you crazy already?
Right.
Probably.
He dragged me into it.
Kicking and screaming.
No, not necessarily.
I watched a guy today. He started a turkey farm. He was like, "Yeah, we just got 2 turkeys for pets, and now he's got like 10,000 turkeys."
Oh my god!
And like incubators and like
he's bought a kit, man, and it took off.
Yeah. Pretty much.
I fell in love with it. It was crazy. Flavoris Lab says, "Do y'all grow any Esomycetes?" I mean, I've got some morels, but
just
I don't grow them.
on my Neurospora, my
there you go.
Lipstick mold. That's all.
Yeah, pretty much.
Not on purpose, though.
Flavoris, you should check out last week's podcast, the MushRune Cast, because we had Josh McGinnis of Everyman Bio on, and he basically specializes in Esomycetes and other molds and
cool stuff.
Strange things. In fact, you guys should go check him out for sure, because hopefully Ed's bringing in even a different audience, because I've seen some new names. But anytime you get contaminants that are really weird, go to everymanbio.com.
Oh, yeah.
He will take your contaminants a lot of times. You should send him pictures first, because you don't overwhelm him with common stuff. But he loves weird stuff. I got this mold in one of these bags back here. You can't see it, but it literally has these nodules that are as hard as like pebbles, and when you feel the bag along the where like through the bag on the contaminant, it feels like braille.
Yeah. We've
So
been calling it the Braille mold.
the braille mold. So we're about to send that to him to get that DNA tested and see what it is. But
Oh yeah, and a lot of those will connect it to the teleomorph, you know. So a lot of these molds are actually ascomycete. So the mold thing is the anamorph, and it'll connect it. The DNA will have the same sequence. The asexual and sexual state will have the same DNA sequence, but oftentimes they'll only grow like the teleomorph, the sexual, you know, cup fungus or whatever. It'll only express itself or grow out like in nature with the real host.
Interesting.
So
okay.
a lot of these people, so you'll sequence that mold and you put the sequence in GenBank and you'll be like, well, this is a morel or this is a pizziza or whatever, and you're like, oh, I thought it was just the mold, but that's the asexual form of the teleomorph, which is usually the name, and then you get in the name issue because a lot of the penicilliums are connected to a sexual name. So then do you call it a penicillium or do you call it like pizziza?
Right.
Back and forth.
I like that word. Pizziza.
Precisa?
Yeah. That's another one. Although we do grow cordyceps. Cordyceps is an ascomycete.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, there's quite a few. I mean, I would think that, like, if anything, I specialize in Basidiomycetes. I don't really do anything else much. Like, I've got some morel cultures, but I don't really do much with them. I just kind of have them. They don't store super well. They go like anemic really quick. Like, I have to refresh their slants far more than anything else.
Did you see the thing about the cordyceps and the mating alleles a couple weeks ago? They were talking about it, where they were saying basically you need to keep your monokaryons separate. And and then make it like they used to do this morels. I remember a long time ago when they were working with the morels. They call it senescence. I don't know if that's the right word, but they basically it was one of the mating alleles like kind of takes over and overruns the other one. I don't really recall exactly what.
Well, and once that happens, it like the strain gets weaker.
Yeah, it just degenerates. I don't think senescence is the right word.
I don't think it's right there either, because like senescence is more about aging, and that's not even enzyme blindness, which is what most people call senescence in the Basidiomycetes. But when it comes to like the cups and clubs, I don't know. I don't really know what that would be. I'm sure there's a process. Somebody's named the process for some. I'm sure.
Yeah, there's two words that the whatever the cube community or whatever uses too often, and that's senescence and mutation. Mutations and senescence are both changes in DNA sequences. I think. I mean, senescence could be something like methylation. There's a way that.
Well, it's the shortening of the telomeres typically.
Telomeres, yeah, exactly. And
I guess that would be a physical change in the DNA, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, and then a lot of people will say like they're getting mutations, but it's not really a mutation. It's like oversupplementation, which is not really much of a change. I don't think you wouldn't call an epigenetic switch being flipped a mutation. I wouldn't.
I wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, so let's see. Masswifo said, "Have you used a plant gel in the substrate?" Not sure on the brand. I'm not. Are you talking about like rooting hormone, or what would be a plant gel? I know. Dr. Myco's trichoderma mix stuff that he sells to get rid of it is it's a orchid hormone.
Oh, orchids.
Yeah, orchids are another rabbit hole. Samantha wants to get into orchids so bad.
Yeah, I heard her talking about that. Oh, you would love. There's a farm like 10 miles down from where I live that has that. They breed orchids.
Let's go.
Samantha's ready to move to Thailand now.
Oh, and they cost like you could buy like a giant orchid for like $2. It's like the most beautiful orchid.
If we move to Thailand, we can sell oyster strains back to the States, and then we can take that $5 that's like $5. You can buy Coke here, and then you can buy like a Coca-Cola factory over there for $5.
Although it's getting. I don't know. Like Samantha, don't get like influenced by the thing that this is just like an all men paradise. Like there's plenty of women that live here too. It's the beaches and everything. Don't it's overrun by the people that are just like, oh, look at the nightlife, blah blah blah. it's got all the stuff like women like too. Beautiful beaches.
Thailand, not just for men.
Yeah, it's not just for overweight 65-year-old men. There's other things you can do too besides sitting on a bar stool.
I love it. Oh, dang it. Myco Geeky jumped on Instagram and then peeled off.
Aw.
Dang it. I'm going to have to send him another message. Be like, bump, respond to me. Let's see.
I can't even read the comments. I'm like kind of a slow reader, so it's better if I don't.
Well, I usually, what I've been doing is just while you're talking, I'm like going through all the ones that aren't questions and then trying to save the question, because otherwise it'll take me forever to get through them as well. He said, Justin North said the Dicarion in the successful Daimon mating was a clone from the mushroom I got the monos from. So, oh wait, so like you got monos. Okay, so this is like a self-breeding, but it's two monos from the same thing. That would make sense to me why the alleles didn't match up. But then you took the Daimon. So yeah, what you did was you took the dikaryote has both sets of alleles. Your Mon-Mons probably shared the same allele. That's why they didn't work. This one then paired with the allele that it would originally pair with. Is that right?
I'm not sure.
I had to close my eyes to map that out. So.
Yeah, I talk to Justin almost every day, and
you've had him on the podcast, haven't you?
Yeah. I think he's going to be on in maybe next couple of weeks too.
Oh, cool.
So I'm a little bit. So he got the monos from the Dicarion. If he got monos from the Dicarion, that means he fruited it, and that in the traditional sense, then there would be only there'd be 4 possible mating types. So in a tetrapolar mating system. So you take the Dicarion, you fruit it, and you would technically only have 2 A alleles and 2 B alleles. I think there's more than 2 A alleles and 2 B alleles. So this is way more complicated, Justin, I think. But in the simplest way, yeah, I might have to write this down and be really, really.
I was going to say, I would have to it's easier if I can draw stuff out. When they test you for intelligence, there's 3 types, and I'm a dummy when it comes to math, pretty good at English or language, but then my spatial reasoning's off the chart. But it means I have to draw everything out. I can't. Everything's visual for me at this point.
Yeah,
I see you doing it. So you're drawing it out too. You're just doing it in the air.
So there's a chance. I think. So Justin, I think you and I and Andrew, all know that whatever you think you run right on paper is not going to It's not going to correlate with what actually happens in the real world.
It's true.
Like Mendelian genetics and our current understanding of mushroom breeding,
you can't really apply it.
It's going to match with the real world.
I've tried, and it just does not. It does not work the same. The same ratios don't work the same.
Yeah.
It's it's actually why my second attempt ever of breeding mushrooms was a white oyster and a blue oyster, because I thought, okay, well, I can use the blue oyster as a marker, right? And then when I saw different various shades of blue, I was like, oh, I make the assumption that I actually had a cross. But then I go to someone and I'm talking to them, and they're like, well, actually, that could be epigenetics. That could be all kinds of stuff. You don't really know what it is. But, it wasn't until later that I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure I can prove this, that I've bred white to blue. Especially since it's just a variant of it. It seems pretty easy, like it would.
Yeah, so people, the verification of crosses and stuff, a lot of people do the ghetto or double swabbing or whatever you want to call those crosses in the cube world, and the verification, kind of like paternity testing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are saying they can do that now.
I've been reading a lot about it and talking to a lot of people who are deeply into the genetics, and they're like, there's not a good way to determine parentage amongst mushrooms yet. There's no good paternity test. Dreamstone says, not sure if it's live anymore. What is the deal with the mother of pearl oyster? It's the best tasting oyster mushroom I've had. Nilla is tasty, but MOP. I don't know what's going on with mother of pearl. Why it was this flavor is so different, but it is a very strong flavored oyster, and it is very pleasant. It's the same. It's actually a sister strain to BS26 and Watercolor and Rocky Top. All 4 of those are sister strains. They're from the same outcross that I did. So.
And its growth pattern is, that orb shape is just awesome.
Oh, yeah. Random Backs of Fungi said, I need to clone Samantha. I could use one of her. I was talking while you were gone. I was talking about like how I'm like a hurricane and come through and mess things up, and then you're like, oh, I can organize this and turn it to something useful. But
It's therapeutic.
I'm just talking while he's drawing that out.
Yeah, I don't know, Justin. Sorry, man.
I was gonna say it seems like it'd be easier if we could actually just talk to him. I haven't grown a bunch of oysters, but recently added elm and considering some white and blue. You purposely put disinfo just where you actually got to call that out, man. Not cool. That little misinfo you left about might just discourage someone for life. It's not about anything. Like, I don't give out misinformation, anything like what you're thinking. Like, the way you took it is not the right way you took it. So it's not at all how I meant it. I don't give out, like, nobody's going to be poisoned or hurt or grow mushrooms incorrectly. It's like, I might mispronounce the scientific name.
Yeah.
I might say it a little funny, that kind of thing. I'm not talking about disinformation. So you can put your bonnet back on. I have copies of a lot of my cultures with a mushroom BFF. We've been friends for 17 years. That way we both have backups of each other's strains, add and replace as needed once per year, just in case. That's a good way to go. Because like Ed's talked about, he's lost strains of his. I've lost strains of mine. It's good to have backups. I used to keep copies at my parents' house in their refrigerator, but I actually haven't checked on those in a while. So
yeah, there's another issue. Somebody was talking the other day about your employees also stealing your stuff. This is another issue that, like, I was talking to a guy and he said he hired someone and they ended up like borrowing some of his strains that were in development, and the next thing you knew they were like selling them.
Oh,
like,
gosh.
Before you'd even released them or anything.
That's happened to me a couple of times. Actually, one of the big companies, two of the big companies, Main Cap and Stem and Norspore, both sell my strains without my permission. And they were like Norspore, I paid money saying like that they were supposed to make grain masters for me, and I paid extra money so that they wouldn't sell them. And then the moment I cut off the deliveries and said, okay, I don't want these anymore, they started selling them after that. So you got to be careful giving anybody your genetics that you don't want to sell. So, and then Main Cap and Stem, I gifted some so they can make fruiting blocks and gave them permission for that. Now they sell them on their Culture of the Month Club after calling my strains unstable. So, which if they're unstable, I don't know why you're selling them. But there's some. You talked about, man. There's drama in the mushroom world always. Like, no matter how much you try to stay out of it, people are gonna misunderstand what you're saying. They're gonna have no chill, that kind of stuff. So,
oh yeah, every time you want to charge money for like your time and years of experience and information, to people are like, information should be free. It's like, yeah, fuck you, dude. I spent like 20 years of my life in college paying for it. Fuck you. Like, if you don't want to pay for it, don't pay for it. Go watch the 6-hour live stream. Yeah, like, it's all there, but like, you can't. I'm sorry, I sit down here and talk to people for like, what basically somebody who works on an assembly line gets. Yeah, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, you're charging for information. Like, you got ChatGPT too, don't you? Why don't you go look it up? Like, I don't know, people get butthurt out of so much stuff these days. It's like, why are you like...
I'm not sure. This Homer Spring minus 1.08. I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean.
Who knows?
So doing it over.
That's the guy that was like, well, he's done twice. Don't kick him, because
shit.
I want him to see the. He said, "Okay, I'll put you back on the good list. Then don't make fun of my bonnet, though. You're just back on the good list." Okay, Homer. I'm glad that we got that cleared up. Sorry, and I'm sorry I flared up so much. I get misunderstood a lot, and part of that's because I'm authentically me. And you can ask Ed, because I know Ed is authentically him. Being authentically you means that you're not the Walmart of mushrooms, but it also means that you cut a lot of people out. Just, you have a, what do we call that, Ed? Like a self filter? I don't know.
I'm not sure, but I've had some particularly infamous flare ups on the internet too.
Yep. So that one was pretty mild. My flare ups are usually reserved for Samantha to see. I don't direct them at her. But she'll definitely see me when I'm like, I get away. I'm like, shut up. And she's like, don't tell me. What'd they say? How'd they hurt you, Andrew?
See, but a lot of people that just should not. Like, I know some buddies who are like, I'm going to do YouTube. I'm like, no, you shouldn't do. You're going to kill somebody.
Oh my
Like you
gosh,
go,
man!
we
Like,
will go and find and somebody like you shouldn't like some people can't handle that kind of
Yeah.
that
it's been
banter,
hard.
you
It's been
know.
hard for both of us. Samantha's more introverted than me. I'm kind of like borderline introverted, and you're talking about you're introverted. It's like I do this in part because I care about the community and I want to share information, but also I want to bring some business back to myself. And I know that one of the best ways to get business is to share free info, and then hopefully people will think of me when they want to buy genetics.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it's like, oh my gosh, this hurts. So like after this, like 3 hours of this, and I'm usually like, I need a nap. I can't think.
Mhm.
Samantha and I, we usually go on a date night after. It's like we'll go have dinner here in a little bit. We're gonna go. I don't know if we're going to Waffle House or Maddox or what tonight, but we'll go somewhere and have dinner, and it's the quietest dinner. Like
Yeah,
we're both just like, oh my gosh, we're
Just
so
enjoying
talked
each
out.
other's company. There's something else too in the fact that I don't think people realize, and I'm sure you feel this way, Ed, too. Like you say the same thing over and over again, and that repetitiveness, it does get tiring for you. And a part of that, like we do these videos, we put out the useful information, and it's like, okay, you have this available to you at any point. It's there. Sure, you could come and take a mentorship and get it all concentrated down, get that hand holding, get the hands-on aspect, but it's all there for free if you want it to just go. And
Mhm.
again, you spent so many years learning and digging through and teaching yourself a lot of things, I'm sure. But when you went to college, I'd say your professors didn't hold your hands. They also related, and relied
Well,
on your talent.
You heard him say where he was like, "What should I do?" And he's like, "That." This
Yeah.
professor was like, "That's your job, not mine." So,
I know.
um,
Yeah, he also threw my 200-page dissertation at me one day when I made the mistake of being like, I told him, I'm like, you're supposed to help me. And he was like, no. And he took my loose leaf, like 200 pages draft and literally threw it at me across the table.
God,
And then I like stood there and picked it up. Like PhD. So,
Not for the
okay, here's
weak.
what one brief thing is like there's certain people that cannot handle doing a PhD because it's like going into boot camp or joining a fraternity. They basically want to break you, and I've been accused of being emotionless and unempathetic, like non-empathetic or whatever. Just last week, somebody was like, "Oh, Ed doesn't seem very empathetic," and it's because I'm not, because I've been trained not to be. I've been trained by Ron to not show emotion and weakness. And that's partially just being a man in America. You're trained not to show weakness,
yeah.
emotion. It's weakness. And so I may inside feel something, but I can't express that. So
That's
that's
a
something that,
coping mechanism.
Oh
yeah.
yeah, for
And to
sure.
some people, that seems a bit like harsh or mean or whatever, but it's like, I'm sorry. Like, the world's a messed up place. And like,
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah, I don't like to like be empathetic. Like I don't need to take on board other people's problems. I got my own problems, you know? Like
Yeah, for sure.
All of us do.
No kidding. Um, yeah. So we have. Brittany was asking about what about that weird lion's mane mold that bleaches stuff. That's actually something I wanted to ask you about. Um,
oh yeah.
have you seen? You've heard me talk about this before?
I have.
Yeah,
I
like
remember.
it gets black and gooey and then just drips. My guess is, and you tell me what you think about this, is that there is a contaminant of some sort. But what is bleaching the floor is not the contaminant so much as the lion's mane strain's response to it. I was reading that a lot of
Defense.
yeah, that like in defense, a lot of mycelium will produce literally like a hydrogen peroxide,
Yeah.
and that's
yeah,
probably what's bleaching the stuff, right?
probably. Yeah, that would be my guess. I remember you mentioned that a couple the Black Death or something. Is that
Black. That's what I call it. Yeah, the black death.
Yeah. Yeah, I only heard you talk about the bleaching the floor one time though, and I
Yeah, I don't
remember
talk
thinking
about that
it.
much.
It could be the yeah, it probably is some side something in the fungus metabolites that's trying to kill off the contaminant.
I assumed it was that rather than anything like special from the contaminant. I've tried to isolate that contaminant a bunch of times, and I'll get mold, I'll get bacteria, and nothing seems to have the bleaching effect. But you watch lion's mane grow across sawdust, and you can literally see a bleaching line, which is what they call white rot, right? It bleaches the wood. So shiitake does it like crazy. Shiitake will bleach it to a crazy degree. So Samantha, I'm not sure if I'm hearing an echo again, and maybe if you try bringing it away from your, let's see if that works.
Aliens,
causing
man.
problems.
It's hard for me to like my ADD is going like what who, why am I talking again? You're okay. Andrew,
Dude, I'm gonna start messing with you and turn on my phone and just
oh gosh, don't you do that. It'll be like a
wait, I don't hear anything. What are you talking about, Andrew? I don't know. You must be crazy. Did you eat the wrong mushrooms?
I already have a tenuous grasp on reality as it is. So, Andrew, I'm curious about your current substrate. Are you using dry oats and hardwood fuel pellets, or are you hydrating the oats first? What does the hydration cooking look like for your blocks? It's super easy. We use what's called dry bagging as the easiest way to use like the Thor system. It gets whole oats. They're dry. They're not pre-soaked. So it's just whole oats, hardwood fuel pellets, and the water all added at the same. The wood swells up and allows it holds the oats in place. You fold the bag, and then when you cook it, the steam hydrates the oats. So it makes them puff up. That's how I work that. Question for you, Ed. So are psychedelic mushrooms considered poisonous?
I mean, it's the same. Water can be poisonous. Poison is it's a dosage issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you eat enough, probably, I don't know, sugar or something like that. So I don't know, poisonous, venomous, there's that whole thing. Like the snake people are always like, this snake's not poisonous, it's venomous.
Right.
Like the whole thing too, like you can eat any mushroom once,
Once.
that kind of stuff. I don't know, what do you consider poisonous? I mean, psychedelic mushrooms react very specifically with the whole serotonin 5-HT neurotransmitter system. There is no known like deadly or lethal psychedelic mushroom dosage, so I don't think you could consider them poison.
I was gonna say I've not ever heard of there being like, I know with like cannabis they talk about to overdose on it you would have to like smoke an entire pallet, which is obviously not counting concentrates and stuff, but like when it comes to mushrooms, I don't know that I've ever heard of a dosage like your body will take longer to process it. I mean, that's all I know, right? Like
not even
it
that, 'cause it'll clear
system.
your body in 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours maybe.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people in the military. I used to know they would specifically do mushrooms because it wouldn't show up on drug tests.
Right.
Because it'll clear, because it's part of your whole serotonin neurotransmitter. All that thing gets pretty much like recycled on a daily basis. So it's not fat soluble or anything like that. But yes, I wouldn't consider them poisonous.
I mean the Amanita, I guess, the Muscaria, but they were not really talking about a common. And also, I mean, Alan Rockefeller talked about that some on his episode with us, where he was like, "Yeah, if you want to have a worse day, eat the the muscadol."
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah. So there's some preparation and stuff that needs to be done, and there's a lot of problems with that thing.
Yeah,
that would probably still not kill you unless it was combined with other stuff. But like potatoes, green potatoes are far more poisonous than like people know.
Oh yeah,
like potatoes are in the nightshade family, just like chili peppers and tomatoes, right? Like like green potatoes are actually quite poisonous.
Potato plant, pepper plant, and tomato plant are all poisonous to us. It's just the fruit and the tuber that's not. So, and like you said, they actually do contain some poison, especially at certain times. I think a green pepper has actually got poison in it. It's just, you cook it and it destroys it. Like you can cook green potatoes and it destroys some of that stuff. But they also, I think in France, where they eat a lot of the green potatoes, like the early harvest of the field or whatever, they peel them so that they're not dealing with the green flesh at the very least.
And it's also, you'd probably have to eat 40 pounds of them or something like that.
Well, it's like sassafras, right? Like they took sassafras out of drinks because it's carcinogenic. It's less carcinogenic than a beer, but we still drink the beer. So
yeah, it's also because they were using it to make MDMA too, like ecstasy.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, saffron.
Oh, that's right.
I almost died one time.
I've forgotten about that. Yeah, Ben and I totally accidentally tripped on saffron one time.
You're trying to make root beer?
Well, we were making root beer, and it was accidentally, I would, maybe you could do it on purpose now, but it was like, we went out hunting, we collected a bunch of sassafras root, we brought it back. Actually, no, that was not the hunting trip. My grandfather and I pulled an entire, large sassafras stump out of the ground. We cut the tree down and pulled the stump out, and so I just sit there for days and shaved that stump down. So we made this huge pot, and we were like, "Oh, we're gonna put back all this root beer and stuff." And I forgot about it, and it boiled down and became more of a decoction. And we're like, "Well, we'll add some sugar and we'll drink it anyways, right?" So Ben and I both drank this really thick drink, and about an hour or 30 minutes to an hour later, we're both just can't stay awake.
It looked like tar.
It did look like tar. It was really good. You put enough sugar in it, it was fantastic. But we straight up fell asleep on the couch, just slumped over on each other basically, and then woke up and I was like, dude, I had this dream where I was walking down this desert road and Ben was like, yeah, and you were with a crowd, and I was like, yeah. And then he was like, and I was like, yeah, and a bomb went off in the distance, and he was like, yeah, exactly. And so we started talking. We're like, "Oh my god, we had the same dream!" It got really weird. Sassafras is a really weird one.
But both of you still had your clothes on, right?
We did. Yeah, that was back whenever. So Ben was Ben's been our roommate 2 or 3 times throughout life, and so if the clothes started coming off, Samantha would have started hitting us or something. I'm sure.
No,
she would have got out.
Left you two alone.
Oh, gross. So Turd Farmer says, also, I'm very curious about the dog food and pellet test. What was the mix and hydration for that? You said you calculated the nitrogen, but I would like to confirm my math. Was the cook the same for this? It was the same cook. I can't remember what the weight ratios came out to, but it was something like 4 to 5% protein. So you have to take the protein content of the dog food pellets, and you have to cut it by the sawdust. You want to do it by dry materials, not wet. And then hydrate to about 60% is what I did for fruiting blocks. And it worked great. The mushrooms grew really, really well. You have to use an insanely small amount of cat food or dog food to do it, though, which is crazy to me. It's actually economically feasible. I was looking at this. It's actually cheaper than soy to use cat food or dog food because even though the bag is far more expensive, you use so little of it. Dreamstone says, what's cordyceps like over there, Ed? Like substrates, mediums, etc.
I hate to disappoint you guys, but it's exactly the same. There's nothing, this isn't like 1850 China. We have the internet over here. They have the internet. Most Thai people can read English. They can probably read Chinese too. Anything you guys know, they know, and vice versa. It's not, there's no ancient Chinese secrets or anything. I'm sorry, they just here. The world, it's one world now, I mean, I'm sure there's some guy in some village in China that knows how to grow shiitakes better than somebody else, but
yeah,
anything that me and Andrew know, or could know, and anything that some person growing here any technique they would use, it's the same thing we use worldwide.
For the most part, I mean, the internet has just homogenized, right? Because it's I'm going to see something out of Asia I incorporate. They're going to see something out of that. And basically, we're all going to kind of eventually get to the same point because there's certain ways to do things that are more effective than others, and we're going to collect those from each other. So it's actually going to homogenize growing techniques probably.
The really cool thing is the diverse perspectives and how that influences the using different just different materials, different processes. That's really cool.
Well, and then when you see all those eventually, we're going to see all those diverse processes. It's going to go life just kind of goes like that. You'll have a proliferation of ideas, and then you'll have a culling of ideas as people figure out what works. And then at some point, as the environment changes, it's much like evolution. You'll see things proliferate as variables increase. And then as people figure out what works in that environment, whether economic or, ecological, people end up zoning in on the same things because those are where the lanes of efficiency are. So,
Yeah, and the prices too, right?
Yep.
I think like Samantha was saying there, the what you have locally available also dictates. Like I can't get wheat or oats. I can,
Mm,
but it's really expensive. Like wheat is like $3 a pound,
right.
whereas I can get rice for like 20 cents a pound. So it's
Makes
like
more sense
way
to go with rice.
cheaper. Instead of like rice, instead of like wheat straw or whatever, or hardwood fuel pellets, I can't get those. So I'm gonna use like rice straw or sugarcane
Yep.
bagasse or something like that.
There's a couple of farms I've consulted for in the Caribbean, and one farm went for rice hulls, the other one went for sugar bagasse, just because that's what they had available.
Yeah, a lot of it's like I sometimes joke that like growing, especially cubes, is just like a big giant recycling process or like like really expensive, elaborate composting.
Mm.
You're like, let me grow all of this like really one organism and then use a bunch of coir and like let me just eat this stuff a little bit and then throw it away. Like expensive, elaborate composting.
Yeah, no kidding. Some Dave says, when looking at hyphae for clamps, has anyone noticed strains of cubes with extremely dense septa spacing? Can characteristics be seen at this level?
Yeah, I've looked at like lots and lots of some Dave. Now that's probably just like unless it's uniform throughout the culture. I don't think that's anything that's special or anything.
Mm,
It's just, I mean, if it was uniform throughout the culture, I would say it's probably a contaminant. If you're talking about, because that's likely to be arthrospores, which are conidia that basically is a mycelium that's septate and then they break apart into propagules. If you're seeing really really dense, like I don't know what dense is to you. If it's like 20 microns between the septa, that's probably not a cube. That's probably a contaminant.
right.
And if it was, you wouldn't see clamps. But if you're seeing clamps and that, like, I'd need to see a picture or something like that.
That's always one of the hard things about the questions without
Yeah.
being able to get context, and the photo, like the picture is almost always. People ask me stuff all the time. I'm like, I really need to know more variables, and the picture I can actually
Yeah.
observe those myself. So,
And be it clamps, people they send me a lot of photos of like, is this a clamp? And I'm like, no.
right.
Like nine out of 10 pictures I get, they're like, I think I found a clamp, and it's like, no, that's not a clamp. I'm sorry. And they get like really sad, like by about the 7th or 8th picture. Then they usually will find one, and I'm like, yay!
Yeah,
Aw.
but that's the great thing about science or any of the things that we do, right? Is that it's in fact
Persist.
someone
Yeah.
someone really wise told me that science is 99% wrong, right?
Yeah.
And so don't, or 99% failure, maybe what they said. And so like that's the thing, right? Is like as you're looking for this stuff or you're trying to observe things, it's the 99% of failure is what makes the 1% great.
Well, 99% of human history has been failure.
Right. Yeah, that's
Like
true.
that's how we learn to do new things. Like I've been growing these damn cubes for 30 years, and I've learned like thousands of ways not to do it.
Not to do it.
Like just not.
That's actually been my thing. Like when people are like, when I give out this info, I'm not telling you how to grow mushrooms. I'm telling you, here's the way I have figured out, and it works for me. And I've only know this because I've done it wrong so many times. So
Yeah.
feel free
the
to
difference.
take what I've
You gotta
learned.
learn from your
Exactly.
mistakes and other people's mistakes. That's like I don't know. There's some quote
wish I
about
was that
like
wise.
smart people learn, and then smarter people learn from others or something like that.
And my brother
There's
is
some-
way
some
smarter than me.
quote.
He's always learned from my mistakes.
Yeah. I like that
I've
word
always been. My mom
persistence,
said I've always
Samantha.
taken the hard path.
Oh yeah, some people.
Max
do.
Mofo says,
My brother is like that.
Oh yeah.
Persistence. I'm writing that word down. That might be my
Persistence.
next live.
There you go.
Sometimes people say patience. Patience, persistence, and there's another P. And there's 3 R's too. People say like patience, persistence, resilience.
Resourcefulness, resilience, and
Maybe
I can't remember the other one.
Might be another one. 3
Mass
Rs.
Mofo says, I have some straw and I'm wondering what I should mix it with, like cocoa core, potato water. Well, the cocoa core, so your straw is your carbon source, and cocoa core is a carbon source. So and potato water is, well, that's technically a carbon source, but it is a sugar. But you're going to need, like I would want some sort of protein, amino acid. So you'd want to mix that with like soy hulls or something with protein in it. coca coir, as far as I know, doesn't have protein, or at least tiny amounts.
Yeah. But is he trying to grow oysters, or what is he trying to grow?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. He doesn't say what he's trying to grow there. He might say in a little bit, but we're going to be wrapping this up soon. I can't go much longer. As good as it is, like this has gone super smooth, but I'm starting to get like the coffee's run out. Battery low.
Same here. I stopped drinking Coke, so I don't have to pee so much, but my ATP levels and caffeine are getting depleted.
Exactly.
It's 7 a.m. in the morning here. So.
Yeah, it's 7 p.m. It's really difficult to find mentors and stuff, or even just guidance. Though there is a ton of gatekeeping, and the info is so scattered. That's true. It's a little less so now, thanks to people like Ed, and not tooting my own horn, but myself, and plenty of others. There's a lot of people, thankfully, giving out a lot of free info. What a bummer about. Oh well, we don't need. People can just see that one. I'm not going to go further into the drama. The free info I find is the encouragement I need to pursue the things I find interesting. The Pandalorian says, "Come over to the way, Brittany. All info is shared by the Pandalores." I assume it's Pandalores, actually, though. I can let my dog. Oh, nope. I'm not going to further the drama. Somebody's going to go tell the Northport crew that I was throwing shade.
Oh, guarantee they will.
Yeah.
I guarantee there's at least 10 people out there watching this. Later, they're going to be ragging on you. And
don't do that. I'm actually about to prototype test the thing for Northport. They're coming out with
the hate watchers. I think people call it hate watching.
Yeah.
People that like hate you, but they still watch.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, there's definitely people. For sure. Not gonna lie, Andrew's looking like Chris Stapleton. Dude, sing his Tennessee whiskey real quick. Dude, I was just listening to Chris Stapleton today. He's in my Southern Comfort playlist I've made.
Andrew has a good voice. I like it.
I do. That is news to me. Homer, that was the Dyson Sphere. That's the heat tolerant lion's mane that I've got. Let's see. I'm gonna try to get through the rest of these, Ed, and then I'm gonna call it. So
yeah, I feel you, man. I'm running out of energy too.
Real quick, when checking cultures in the microscope, is there a best place to take a sample of mycelium to check for clamps? That's actually a good question. Do you take it from the tip, or do you take it from the mass, or?
Usually the leading edge of the culture, but that's just kind of out of convenience. Because I like to, if it does have clamps, I like to subculture right next to where I take the little sample from.
Okay.
So I don't like so I prefer, I don't know what's better or worse, to take a culture, like a transfer from somewhere near the original point of inoculation or near the edge. It depends what the culture looks like.
Yeah.
I just usually take it from wherever looks good, and I don't know.
So just somewhere that looks nice and clean.
That intuitive experience.
When you take it, are you taking it from like an agar plate, and are you just scraping the mycelium off to lay on a slide, or?
Yeah, it's like a squash mount. I have a little video about it. It's like literally like a 3-minute long video, and I'm surprised how many people don't know how to do it. I basically take a scalpel and do like kind of like a 3-sided, like a square, but like don't do the 4th side, and then kind of shave like you would be like shaving. You know how like you take butter, like you would like slice a little pat of butter off the top of it, like that, but under. So you get maybe a 1/16 of an inch of the surface of the agar plus the mycelium.
Okay.
And then squash it down. And you really want to use a piece that's like as big as the tip of that pen, like tiny, 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 like that big. I see people taking like a quarter of a rice grain. But I'll see people and they're trying to squash like a popcorn kernel size piece of agar, and that just does not work. Or they'll just be putting the cover slip on top of it, like they cut out a square and then they put the cover slip on top of this big chunk. I don't know where people learned. I do know where they learned to do it, but that's not the right way to look for clamps. Gotcha. Or lack of clamps. You want to do a squash mount, because you get all the, like you were talking about, the focal planes, right? You want to get as much of that stuff in the focal plane as you can, especially with a compound microscope, because otherwise you'll have to go up and down, and it's just harder.
Gotcha. Okay.
And try to smash it down there, and if you evenly press on the cover slip, you can get it pretty much. It should adhere to the microscope slide, and then push all the air bubbles and stuff out if you can.
Yeah. Have you heard of Julius AI, Ed?
I've heard of it, but I don't remember what its specialty.
It's a bioinformatics AI.
It can take in images too, and so that's something that I think is really cool. That you have your microscope, you put a camera on top of it, and you're talking about like that intuitive experience, right? Taking it by what looks good. It could read where you took that sample, and then start formatting.
Yeah, taking the like data, like it'll analyze that. It's actually really cool because I was like, bullshit, it's not gonna be able to work, and I uploaded. It's like, I can analyze photos and crops and stuff for you, and I was like, So I gave it a picture because like AI is normally terrible at mushroom stuff. It's only now starting to get pretty good, and I've had to train my Chat GPT instances to really know what I want them to know. But the Julius AI, I gave it as a photo of like my oyster mushroom wall and like lion's mane and stuff, and it was able to accurately identify. It gave me like, based on the fact that you have 3/4 inch PVC in the photo, these mushrooms are roughly this size, the stipe is roughly this thick, and it gave me like an analysis of it, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is really, really good actually. So
because you sit there and think about AI in general and just kind of just a super generalized framework, but then you take the ones that have been specialized, they've been fed very specific information, they're not allowed to know or input anything else, and they use that in a very specialized way. Julius is centered around informatics, biology, all of that stuff, so it's very special in that way.
I actually got a bunch of people in Dr. Oman's lab over at NC's A&T to I got one guy that did a mentorship with me. It's actually really funny. Joel came and did a mentorship with me. Went to do a mentorship somewhere else.
Brilliant kid.
Freaking love this kid. He went to a microgreens facility, did a mentorship. Wait, what? Anyways, he did a mentorship with like a microgreens facility. He did like something else, and he ended up doing like he said he walked into the lab at the Dr. Oman's lab to like go give his interview. I guess you have to interview to get into these labs that when you're doing masters and PhD stuff. And so he goes in and he said that my face was literally on the monitor as he walks into the lab. And he said that he went, oh, I know that guy. And the guy turned around and was like, bullshit. And he's like, no, I know Andrew Reed. And he's like, you know Andrew Reed of Mossy Creek Mushrooms. He's like, yeah, I lived with him for a weekend with his family and stuff, doing their mentorship. And the guy's like, no shit, do you know how to contact him? He's like, yeah, I've got his cell phone number right here, because all my mentorships get my personal cell. And he's like, yeah. So they ended up all coming out here. They were given some sort of, I don't know. They said they go to Nashville to do something with their dissertations. I'm not sure, but on their way there, they stopped in here, did a tour, and then they stopped on the way back out too. And it was really, really cool. But he said, I got him then on Julius AI a few months after that. And he's saying, man, that they completely changed a lot of stuff for him, that he uses it for all kinds of stuff. And yeah, John, you do have to be careful with. I wouldn't use AI to identify edible mushrooms, or at least if I did, I would use it as a point in a right direction, and then confirm elsewise. But yeah,
please don't eat anything that has not been identified by another human being.
Yeah,
that's just stupid. Don't do that. You're gonna poison yourself inevitably.
Yeah,
if you're lucky.
Yeah, no kidding. Absolutely. Well, Ed, it sounds like you're tired. I'm tired. I'm hungry. I want to go eat some supper. So
yeah, I'm getting hungry too.
Did you really stay up all night?
Yeah. I do this. I literally do, because I live alone. Like it's funny because I just live in my freaking mushroom farm by myself all the time. Like nobody's ever been here before except for my landlord. And it's kind of lonely, man. It's a lonely world. Like you can give like farm tours. I would love to bring people here to give them farm tours, but that's just not going to happen.
Yeah. I guess that is one of the benefits of gourmet.
Yeah. A guy wants to meet me. He's in Bangkok now. And he's like, oh, can I come meet you? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to meet him like 4 miles away. And like, like you get paranoid in this, this kind of thing. I'm like, if he puts I got to worry about, I'm going to be checking my motorcycle for like a tracker and things like that. People are wacky, man. People do like weird stuff here.
They are like, so but when we used to run the farm out of the basement and had first started the YouTube channel, I never gave out my address. I don't know how these people got it, but they showed up at 4 freaking a.m. in the morning
At our house.
And then got pit like with a trunk full of maitake they wanted to sell to me. How they got my information, I've got no idea. But they were not happy when I greeted them with a shotgun. And so that's one of the benefits of having a warehouse. Is that at least with the warehouse,
And
there's
a shotgun.
some. Yeah, well, and a
There's
shotgun.
distance.
Right. But there's at least but they're like, why are you so blah blah? I'm like, it's 4 a.m. You didn't call, you didn't do anything. Like, how did you even find me? So people you cannot give out your address and stuff will still. People will still find ways to find you, man.
Dude, I'll stab them with my number 7 scalpel and my number 11 blade. I'll just stab them like 4,000 times.
And you might do a little damage after that.
Exactly. Might like cut half a tendon, half a bicep off or something. They'll just put their hand up and be like, stop that, stop that.
Yeah, exactly. Stop that.
Just need a taser.
Oh my gosh. Oh gosh.
Pepper spray.
I've actually,
Well,
the scalpel would
my
not make a
attack
great weapon.
spider. I had, those huntsman spiders.
Yeah.
I came in this
Oh
room
my
yesterday and there was one on the wall that was like this big. I swear to God, I turned on the light. And you know what I did? I didn't want to kill it, so I just got it drunk. I just doused it with 70% ethanol until it like got incapacitated, and then I scooped it on a tennis racket and threw it in the front yard.
I thought for
I
sure.
don't want to kill him. I think he's just really, really drunk.
I really thought isopropyl would kill stuff. So like I would shoot a fly out
This
of
is
the air.
ethanol. I use ethanol. So
Ethanol?
maybe he's just drunk.
What? I literally thought I killed a fly with isopropyl. I like sprayed it, it knocked it out of the air, went down. I sprayed, walked away, came back. All the isopropyl was dry, and the fly was laying there. And I was like, "Oh yeah, it killed it. I'm gonna clean it up here in a second." And then I was sitting there doing something, and I literally watched it because I didn't clean it up immediately, and it got up and flew away. I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, how in the world does it do that?"
Oh, I did it
Peanut
before with a
ferret?
spider. I don't think it kills them. It just incapacitates them like it does us.
Well, isopropyl apparently do some bad. There was a guy here in Morristown who was an alcoholic. His family removed everything, so he drank isopropyl.
Oh.
He blacked out. Apparently, he did brain damage to himself, I guess. But he ended up he raped a 90-year-old woman. Went on some sort of like a war path after that. I know, it was crazy. You can look at it like it happened.
Samantha, I've been being good, man. I've been being good.
I'm not saying
Andrew's the one acting
it's
up.
a good thing. I'm just saying this is what happened. This was in the news, and it was terrible. So yes, don't drink the isopropyl.
Well, they had some methanol poisonings over here last month. There was a guest house in Laos, the country next door. Somebody put methanol. You know what they used to do, like bathtub gin and stuff like that back during Prohibition? They put a little bit too much methanol in it, and like 11 people died.
Yeah.
It was crazy. It was like it was just the methanol. It turns into formaldehyde in your body.
Yeah, methanol is. Yeah, that's the whole thing. A lot of people say they put formaldehyde in it. They didn't. They put methanol in it, and that's what that was from. But well, Ed, I really appreciate you coming on with us, man, and spending so much time with us. I want to do it again. There's a couple of times I'd like to be able to just sit down, just you and me, and dig into some stuff as well. Yeah, man. Is there anything you want to plug? Your website or
Let's see, I
see the sporeswaps.com. So that's been being plugged the whole time at least.
Yeah, that's good enough. The other thing I just say, I'm gonna teach a chemistry class probably. I need to write it up and I got it pretty much written up, but I'd like to do a chemistry class and probably I don't know how long, maybe 2 hours. I did a 3 or 4 hour class a few months ago. It's maybe a bit long, so I think I'll do 2 hours and then. But yeah, some of the chemistry things, like people don't understand like what gypsum is, what pH is, what
I'll go to that one.
Yeah, I'm gonna write it up here in the next couple days. The swabs. I just sell swabs, and they're $15 a pair, which basically covers material costs and shipping. So I don't charge any shipping. So yeah, I make like $5 or something. But I just like it. I like spreading genetics, and of course the YouTube. Other than that, I don't really got anything else to. I was gonna sell
your
merch,
YouTube would be.
There's my merch, but
there's your merch. Is that a new logo?
I made stickers. So I made a little thing in Canva, but then I made stickers, and then I made some embroidered shirts. But I'm like, I can't be bothered with all the sizes and stuff.
That's what we went to a third party. We've got a third party printer that does ours for us. In fact, it's about to be hooked back up to the website. Thankfully, we'll get the merch back. But
And if you have
love
any
merch.
questions about any of that, including outside of Canva, whatever, you let me know, and I'll make
Samantha
sure to get
does a
you
lot
taken
of
care of.
graphic design and
I
things like
might
that.
ask you about that later. Yeah, if it could be in America, because the other problem is shipping from over here. Is
Oh, the
always
third
tricky.
party, like you hook it up to your website, and then the printer is in your, so like it will pay you, deduct the printer's fee out or whatever, and then they ship it straight to the person. So it's in the States. Ours is in the States at least. So
It includes like where they ship it from is the printer that has been they go through an interview process, and they have to send in samples to Printful or Printify or wherever, and they'll choose the artist that is closest to the individual who purchased it. That way it's the cheapest shipping, and they're already vetted, and it'll ship straight to them very quickly too.
Cool. I love the internet, man.
Yeah.
It's incredible we can do all this stuff. I mean, just the
It
fact
is
that I'm
neat.
talking to you right now is pretty darn cool.
yeah,
you know?
considering that you're exactly on the opposite end of the world, like that is pretty incredible.
I'm
But
gonna go eat some Thai food for breakfast.
heck yeah, man, do it. I'm gonna go eat some breakfast.
80-year-old lady across the street's probably cooking noodles about now.
There you go. I think I'm gonna vote for Waffle House and eat some breakfast for dinner. So,
Dude, they got that stuff over here now too. Donuts, like they have these weird donuts that don't got a hole in them, but they're like really good. And they're like, "Oh, you evil!" It's the food companies. Man, I got KFC, a McDonald's.
Oh,
It's
gosh.
like I live way outside the city.
Yeah,
too,
it's funny.
and
I did a
KFC's everywhere, McDonald's.
I did a consult yesterday. I think it was for it was yesterday. A guy in Kuwait, and he was telling me about the food scene there, and he was talking about, yeah, we got all the American stuff too. He's like, we got all the good Kuwaiti food, and we've got the American food. I'm like, man, that stuff is really spreading. So,
Yeah,
and
and everybody's getting larger.
yeah, well, fair enough. It's already
Like,
happened here.
Bigger and bigger. Oh man, it's crazy. But the thing is, when you're like 6 foot tall, it's okay. But when you're like 4'3", like 10 pounds is a lot.
Too.
When you're like 4'3", like,
Right. Oh my gosh, the guy we hired is 6'8" and 360, and that guy is like, he is scrimmier, big fellow, like big time. He's a giant. I was telling my dad about it. I was like, we hired this guy, and he's like, oh yeah, so he's pretty big, and he's like, well, that's not nice. I mean, I was like, no, Dad. I mean, like, I look up to him. Like, he's
Oh,
8
that's
inches
sweet.
taller than me. I'm 6 foot. He's 6'8".
oh man. So send
Um,
him out when they show up at 4 a.m. with my attack.
Yeah, no kidding. Too bad he won't be here since he's not living with me, but maybe I can get him to stay at the farm.
Oh, you still got the shotgun. That's okay. That's one thing I do miss my guns. People are like, "Do you miss anything about America?" Man, I miss my Remington 870 and my Ruger 1022.
They are fun, but like I've gotten to the point where I don't like, cameras have actually taken that spot for me, because it's like I can go out hunting and I can shoot all the animals I want, and I don't have to clean them. I don't have to kill them. I get to take the prize back. The prize back is a good photo. So,
That's true.
man, we got all
Maybe
these
still
people
vibes.
suggesting food for us too. I vote for loaded omelets, hush puppies, sweet cornbread. All right. So your YouTube channel is? I mean, is it? It's just
Like,
Dr. Edward Graham?
Just Edward Grant. Yeah,
Yeah.
it comes. I come up on Google and everything now. It's kind of scary considering my topic. Like, put my name in Google, and it goes right there. Like,
There you go.
YouTube, spore swaps. It's all there for.
So the biggest presence I've seen you have is your YouTube channel. So yeah, guys, go check him out on Edward Grand, and then he's got sporeswaps.com is if you want to go support Ed and his work. Ed, thank you for joining us. We'll go ahead and let you
Definitely,
go, but feel
right,
free
that
to
was
chat
great,
me up,
man.
man. Take it easy.
Thanks. Yeah, if it will do. Have a good day.
You too. Excellent. All right, guys, I had a great time. We're going to close it up here as well. Oh my gosh, fried taters with mustard. Fried taters sounds good too. What's up?
Everybody's getting hungry.
Yeah, I like mustard on my biscuits. Mhm.
Mustard. I'll take.
Yeah, give me
I
mustard
forgot
on my
about that
biscuits.
movie.
We're going to like, my kids have not seen Sling Blade. We're going to have to do that. Guys, real quick before we close it up, I'm just going to plug myself as well, since now Andrew knows how the rest of us feel. Talking about the food. That's fair. I do talk about food a lot, and then you guys will tell me you're hungry. But for the best in gourmet genetics, the best LC premix on the market, Dr. Solarian's Elixir of Mycelial Mastery, and some of the finest extracts you'll ever come across. Check out
There's some pretty fine
mossycreekmushrooms.com.
extracts out there.
Ours are the best. So, and I'm not partial at all. They're truly the best. You can look
Not
it
at
up.
all.
And make sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell for alerts when we go live. Liking our content is 100% proven to increase your yields. As well as, guys, I'm going to do one more plug for the mentorship. I'm going to be checking my emails and getting invoices and stuff sent out tonight. So if you want to jump on that bandwagon of getting 50% off of your mentorship the week to come stay with us, learn whatever you want. We'll tailor things for you. Come check us out. Send us an email through either the website or just mossycreekmushrooms.com. mossycreekmushrooms@gmail.com. Or you can also give us a call on the shop number or text, and I will get you set up. Just tell me the week that you want, and I'll make sure to clear that it's clear. And as soon as we get the invoice and receive payment, we will get you reserved. Again, the entire month of February is taken, so that is unfortunately gone. And October is almost gone. In fact, I think I have a third person look like email trying to book a third week in October. So also save 20% with discount Rifle Creek 20 and check out that new strain, the Rifle Creek oyster. It is seriously one of the best textured oysters I've ever come across, and it's about to be featured very heavily in my breeding program. It was actually bioprospected by a company called Legacy Mushrooms LLC, who no longer is in business as far as I can tell. If you are in business, Legacy, I've tried emailing and calling and a bunch of other stuff and trying to track down your website. Get a hold of me. But as far as I can tell, the only reason why I've decided to sell this strain is because no one else can get it otherwise. So Rifle Creek oyster, don't forget Rifle Creek 20 for 20% off. And check all that stuff.
The best way to save a strain too is to get it into rotation, have multiple people growing it, and that's really what we're after as well.
Thanks very much. Yeah, plug yourself. I've never heard of you. I'll grow some shiitake and hericium just because. Heck yeah. Absolutely, Ed. That was super good having you on. And Brittany, if you can't travel, we do allow people to do it online. It's a lot harder. It's not as good. It's really better if you can find a babysitter. Yeah, I would let you bring the cows, but I don't know where they would sleep. So, again, thank you all very much for a great stream. I think this may be a record for us because we're almost 4 hours. So hooray for us.
Woo.
That's an excellent one.
And Ed,
I hope you guys,
patience.
and Ed, absolutely. I hope you guys had as good a time as we did. Yeah, y'all, with that, keep spawning culture.